What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive presented by No House Advantage. I'm Eric Lindquist, not Lofty, filling in for Lofty here on this Friday. Hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell as we get going. Goes a long way for us here on the channel. Looking forward to today's 5-game slate. I'm going to be playing it. Sometimes I take my Fridays off, sometimes I don't. Definitely going to be playing this slate. Maybe throw a little hockey in the mix as well. Mainly because I got the guy who kind of does that same thing. He plays the doubles here once in a while. It's my buddy, Adam Scherer, Ship My Money DFS on Twitter, where I'm still banned. How you doing, my dude?
Doing pretty well. I was doing a lot better like 10 minutes ago when I thought I was doing the show with Lofty, but
Thanks.
Still hanging in there.
Great. So just be your same miserable self?
I mean, probably twice as much because I don't get to do it on Twitter since, you got banned.
You got to get those insults in person now. You can't just be like, oh, great projection on Terry Eason yesterday, Eric. Good job. Way to hit the nuts for no reason.
Yeah, I told you, when you tried to take credit for that before the show, I laughed at you.
Thank you. Sometimes you get the bear, sometimes the bear eats you. And Spencer Dinwiddie ate me. Had a good night still, no doubt about it. But shout out Tom Kennedy, our CEO, 100K. He shipped it. It was kind of a weird night because I was winning 100K for a really long time. Then Josh was winning 100K for a really long time. And Tom comes through. Spencer Dinwiddie. Dwight Powell, I think, was in that lineup as well. Absolute smashes, absent Luka Doncic. Really good stuff from the boss man. The true almighty boss man up top, Tom. So good stuff.
Here's a question if you're related to that, because you are genuinely a nicer person than me. If you're winning a tournament like that, like late into the night, and then you end up not winning, do you prefer it be somebody that you know or like somebody in the industry, or just like an absolute random person?
I'm okay that it's the guy writing my checks that won 100K.
Yeah, it would still piss me off. Sorry, Tom. But
what? No way.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
If I when somebody else wins, like when I didn't have a sweat, like I don't care. Cool, good for you. Like happy to see people that I know win. If I was like winning, especially, I mean, in your case, like you were winning, but you knew you weren't gonna hold.
Right.
So like it's a little bit different. But like if you like I'm winning and then Tom, passes me with 30 seconds left in the game or something, I think I would almost rather it just be some random person, not like somebody I know. Like I don't want to know the person that's happy.
Ship my pettiness, Scherer over there. What in the world, dude? I always like it when it's somebody that I know. And I'm competitive. I think we're all kind of competitive by nature. If we do this day in, day out, like you don't like losing. That's what it comes down to. The reality is that you're going to lose most of the time. So when you see friends, when you see coworkers hit big, it's really advantageous. And it's so great when it's underneath the Stokastic umbrella. I have to say that too. It's nice seeing the avatar up top. Shout out the CEO, the boss man. You want to say something else? Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to agree with you. The other thing too is like when you play, the thing that does make it nice when somebody wins is like anybody that's played significant volume realizes that like pretty much if you haven't won a tournament recently, you're going through a losing streak. And so like that's the thing that people forget is like a lot of times you'll see somebody win and it's just like a big sigh of relief for them more than anything. So like that's why it's always nice. It's not. It's easy to just be like, oh, cool, like more money for that person. But like realistically, like they were probably just losing for the last like month. Like not talking about Tom, I have no idea how he's been doing, but like in general, even when I win, people are like, oh, like Adam won again. And it's like, yeah, but you didn't realize that over the last 20 days, I was down, 50K or something.
Right. Yeah. If you max it out, 2250 in, you made 98K basically on the night. Right. It's really hard that wouldn't cure a lot of your losing streak. Like you could have lost for 3 months probably. It would be hard to really see that if you were just playing only that tournament. Like if you're only playing the main iteration for NFL, NBA, when MLB comes back, like you could go through that losing drought. You're probably going to still be up no matter what in that event.
Right. Yeah. It's just a lot of times. I mean, like sometimes you get them back to back, like Drew did the other day. But like
that was wild.
But like I know Drew had been in a slump before that too. But like sometimes you get them back to back. But like a lot of times, I don't remember who said this on which podcast, but it was completely accurate. Like when you win a tournament, it's like you feel good for like 15 minutes and then it's just like a sigh of relief. Like, yeah, all right, cool. Now back to probably losing for the next 3 weeks, especially in those large field stuff.
Yeah, I almost lost money in MLB last year and then I won like 50K in a week. It was just like, it was the only profitable week I had in like the last 2 months of MLB season. It's just how stuff shout out to Julio Rodriguez. He's a real one. That dude. Oh,
that's how NFL was for me this year. I still ended up down a little bit because I finished poorly, but like I was down and then I made like 75K in 2 weeks and then just like lost out the rest of the season and ended up around even. But it was the same thing. It was just like, damn, I'm gonna get killed. And I was like, oh, I'm up.
yeah. It's just those are the swings. We want to be honest about it because it is just a grind. It is not it's a marathon. It's not a sprint in any way, shape, or form. However, I do like your transition getting to 3 max. I've been kind of dabbling in that. I know that a couple of years ago we talked a lot about 3 max and MLB. I haven't been playing as much. I've been focused primarily on just bigger tournaments. It's hard when you're specifically trying to rank your lineups too in Cruncher when you're on a live before lock to really like pick those ones. I'm better at like throwing the dartboard in like 30 or 40 lineups when I'm on a live before lock, but that's a conversation for a different day. Shout out to the boss man, CEO Tom Kennedy. Shout out to Josh Engelman. I think he was scattered all over the top 50, top 100 last night. Good to see him over on DK.com because I know he's been a FanDuel guy, but who's a FanDuel guy anymore? Nobody? Nobody is probably the right answer. Shout out to Jordan Klein there behind the virtual glass here, putting in that extra work. He's hanging out with me. Yeah, Fridays. We were playing golf together last Friday. We were on a show. You know where I'd rather be. That's all I know. Right. Let's talk basketball, shall we, Adam?
Yeah, if we have to.
I suppose. Milwaukee -8, Indiana 240 total here in this one. Milwaukee back to full strength. It is just wild. They do have Bobby Portis out. He's going to be out here for a hot second. It's going to be a little while, but Pat Connaughton.
Not at full strength, you mean?
Shut up. Right off the bat, first fucking guy. You serious? Whatever. Pat Connaughton pulling the most ownership. Shut your mouth about anything making fun of me and just give us good analysis, you dope.
It's a good insult. Wolfie and I were talking about that the other day.
Shut up. Go.
Yeah, so I mean, they are mostly full strength. The thing is, like from a DFS standpoint, there's not too much you can take from Bobby Portis being out. It does help solidify minutes probably for Pat Connaughton, especially while we've seen Chris Middleton be limited. He played 15 minutes last game. I have him in for like 20 right now. I expect it to be somewhere in that ballpark. So I think it's likely you're getting low to mid 30s from Pat Connaughton. He played 38 last game. Clearly you're not expecting that to be the norm, but not a good point per minute guy, or not a great point per minute guy, but 4,100, small forward eligible, pulling 20% ownership, clearly a good point per dollar value. I think Joe Ingles is sort of an interesting pivot off of Connaughton in larger field stuff. Connaughton's clearly the priority, in your smaller field stuff where you care a little bit more about projection than ownership. But Ingles likely playing around 26 minutes, shooting guard, small forward at 1/7 the ownership of Connaughton. That's just kind of an interesting natural pivot there. The other guy that I think could benefit a little bit with Portis being out is Brook Lopez. He played 32 minutes last game. He typically plays 30 to 31. So there's no guarantee that you get, substantial playing time with Portis out, but it does sort of make that path a little bit easier where, maybe Portis or Lopez picks up a couple of extra minutes. The problem with Lopez today, though, and the reason he's only pulling 6.5% ownership, despite a favorable matchup against Indiana, is DraftKings center pricing is interesting to say the least.
My God.
You have a $6,400 Rudy Gobert. You have a $6K Jared Allen. Those two guys are just going to pull a ton of ownership. Then you also have Bam Adebayo, Miles Turner, Brook Lopez, Pascal Siakam. I'm sure I'd probably Wendell Carter Jr. So it's a spot where like you're just going to get low ownership basically on everybody that's not named Jared Allen or Rudy Gobert. It makes it interesting in tournaments because you can get to what I think is just clearly a good play in Brook Lopez. It's just that he's pretty far behind those other guys. You're going to need to get kind of lucky to have, Lopez beat them, but certainly within the range of outcomes.
Send appeal. Gobert is doubtful. He is questionable. That is the correct answer. He is questionable. Yep. And if you don't have Gobert, you get Naz Reid.
Yeah, but Naz Reid's power forward, so that would change it up.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
That's like Brandon Clark is
Brandon
Clark's a phenomenal option if he's starting as well, but he's also power forward.
Correct. Rudy Gobert, if he plays 6,400, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. So regardless of what you want to say, you're also getting positive leverage on a 46% owned Jared Allen at the moment. So riddle me that, Batman. I'm with you. Brook Lopez would be more interesting on a slate that is not this one. 5-gamer with tons of center value. How do you feel about Giannis at 11.5 today?
I think that it's like it's obviously a good spot for him. I'm a little concerned about his playing time. You know, we know he's been banged up a little bit recently. You've kind of just been getting like these 30-minute rotations. I went ahead and projected 33. That certainly could end up being low. We also have him projected for 33. So, you know, same page there. Very good matchup. Not a ton of really cheap value today, but also probably not that difficult to get to him. I have Fantasy Cruncher running in the background right now to kind of see how he's showing up for me, but we have him being optimal on DraftKings 17% of the time, 18% ownership. It's sort of like Luka yesterday, where I think that he's very obviously a good play, and on these shorter slates, those raw points do end up being a little bit more important because there's just not as many mid-range guys that can come, you know, finish in that same ballpark. But the thing is going to be like, are you able to get to him in contrarian ways, or are you just going to end up in a spot where every Giannis lineup looks like every other Giannis lineup and you're just playing like 1v1 and 2v2s against thousands of people? Because that's kind of a miserable way to go. But if you're willing to take some chances on, you know, low owned, risky, cheap guys, I think that's fine. Like, for example, just from what we've already talked about on this team, that's the kind of situation where Joe Ingles starts to become appealing to me. And there's other guys that look like Joe Ingles. But if you're going to just play like Pat Connaughton to get to Giannis, cool, it's going to project really well. But like everybody is doing that. Whereas if you just say, okay, well, I'm going to go Joe Ingles, and that's going to be a good contrarian spot where if he just beats Pat Connaughton, I'm in a good spot. And then I have Giannis, you know, kind of by myself. So I think if you're willing to make lower probability plays, it makes more sense to get to Giannis. My big concern with him is just that your lineups end up looking like everybody else's in terms of roster construction.
Yeah. Drew Holiday, the one piece, the last guy there, 6% Drew Holiday. You can always play that. Have fun.
Yeah, I think he's going a little bit under-owned. He's showing up like 14% for me right now.
Yep, I like that. Just a little bit of positive leverage. Just another dude that obviously can carry a ceiling and do a lot of things. Chris Middleton, I have him for 16 minutes. I don't really see him playing more than that. So enjoy that. He's going to eventually cut into Drew Holiday and Giannis, but that is not going to happen for the time being. Let's jump over to the TJ McConnell show, which it seems like every single Indiana slate has been here of late. We got to wait on Aaron Nesmith. He's questionable. He did play against Orlando, but just played 13 minutes. Kind of weird spot there. Miles Turner, 7,100. Always an interesting kind of situation with him being questionable too, because I never really know how to prioritize whomever. It's kind of like whoever starts there and then takes some dart throws on like a 3K O'Shea Brissett. But let's start with McConnell, 6,500. He always projects well on pretty much every single slate. How do you view him today? Because pulling a lot of ownership yet again.
I think he's a good play. I think I'm just a little bit lower than the field. The thing that I kind of been going back and forth on with McConnell is he's obviously been very, very good this year, and he is a good fantasy producer, you know, in the past as well when he gets opportunities. But, you know, is he really able to maintain this assist percentage long term? Because it's a crazy high assist percentage. He's at 40.6% overall for the season. And that by itself is high. But then when you take Halliburton off, it gets up to like 44.5%. If you put like Miles Turner on the floor with Halliburton off, or if you put like Turner and Hield on, then the usage rate for McConnell takes a hit, as you would expect. But then the assist percentage gets up to like 50.5%. My concern is just, you know, over a larger sample, does that 50%, 45 to 50% assist percentage hold? Or do you see it come back to like 40 to, you know, 44%, somewhere in there, but with decreased usage and a little bit of a decrease in production? And then on top of that, you do have a relatively difficult matchup against Milwaukee, although Indiana does still have a 115 implied total. So kind of a long way of saying I think TJ McConnell is a very good play. I also just think he's going a little bit over-owned. I'm just a little bit lower on him, I think, than most people are. So ownership agnostic, I still think he's one of the best plays. Like, I just ran a dummy sim just to get an idea, and he still shows up the 8th most for me on DraftKings. So clearly a good play, but I also just think not nearly as much as ownership is suggesting right now.
Makes sense. Do you have more interest in going to Buddy Hield then, where he has the shooting guard, small forward eligibility, 6,100, carries a massive ceiling, under 28% owned, carrying less than more than 10% less ownership than TJ McConnell at the moment. Is that kind of a guy that you're naturally getting to?
Yeah, I think he's going a little bit over-owned as well, but not as much as TJ McConnell is. The positional eligibility is really nice. Shooting guard, small forward. He should give you 34 to 36 minutes. If guys start getting ruled out, you can add onto Hield's playing time as well. So I think he's probably somebody I get to a little bit more just because there's fewer options that are similar to him. That's the other thing with McConnell. And also, if guys start getting ruled out, you probably add a little bit of playing time to McConnell as well. That is actually just a big question mark with him too. We've gotten huge minutes from him 2 of the 3 games that he started. Last game, he still played about 33. If you go back to last year in games that he has started, he's averaged 33 minutes per game. I think that's a fair projection, but like there is still just a lot of wiggle room there. And similarly with Hield, if guys start getting ruled out, you can add a couple minutes on. But what I was going to say was even just like off the top of my head with McConnell, you have Tyler Hero at a very similar price. You have D'Angelo Russell at a very similar price. I don't think that those guys are very different in terms of range of outcomes. So I think that's another reason why, McConnell just isn't showing up nearly at 40% for me, whereas Hield is coming much closer to his 27% predicted ownership.
Now it gets fun because we got to play a little bit of theoretical where Nesmith, Nembhard, Turner, all 3 of them questionable. We're going to be waiting on that for a while, I'm assuming. If it pops up during the show, we'll revisit it quickly, but let's just assume we're running into something like we had last time where Aaron Nesmith ends up being in, Turner, Nembhard being out. Chris Duarte played 39 minutes in that starting unit. He's up to 4,200 from 3,400, but like 39 minutes of that, dude. I don't really care who it is. He's a 0.76 fantasy point per minute producer. Give me 38, 39 minutes absent some of these other bodies. He makes sense. And then Benedict Mathurin, 38, 34, 33 minutes. Even from the starts we saw earlier, his minutes have been ramped up of late as well. Aaron Nesmith, it's so hard to understand. Like, he has this right wrist issue going on. 13 minutes against Orlando. Not sure what to make of that either. But it seems like Mathurin's just getting a longer leash here now at this point in time. How do you view these ancillary options from Indiana?
So if you start getting guys ruled out, like if Chris Duarte ends up in the starting lineup, he's interesting at 4,200. I would certainly want to pay attention still to the ownership projection because he's not the best point per minute guy, and there's a lot of volatility in his playing time. We saw 38 or 39 minutes last time out. We saw 26 in his previous start. So I think you probably just sort of project him for something like 30 to 32 minutes if he is starting. If he's coming off the bench, this is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. But if he is starting, I think expecting around 30 to 32 minutes makes sense. But understanding that could really just go like 4 minutes in either direction. But at 4,200 with shooting guard, small forward eligibility, he'll certainly look like a good value. If Aaron Nesmith is starting, I think projecting him for around 28 minutes makes sense. That's what we had seen prior to last game recently. And at 3,400, it creates a situation where he's not a very high upside option, but he projects as a decent point per dollar value, probably going a bit over owned at 23%. But, he would be a decent value if he is starting. If Nembhard's starting, he's only pulling 5% ownership right now. He's 4,700. He'd be another risky option, but somebody that's probably going a little bit overlooked. He isn't very good at all when he plays alongside TJ McConnell.
Yeah.
Like it's basically just like when he plays alongside Halliburton, but you can expect him to stagger his minutes with McConnell most likely. So if you get a situation where McConnell plays 33 or 34 minutes and Nembhard plays 28 to 30, you're probably getting 50% of Nembhard's minutes without McConnell on the floor, which is very good for him. So I think he's somebody that it's been really interesting to watch his ownership. He was getting tons and tons of ownership when Halliburton first got hurt. And I wasn't there because I realized how much TJ McConnell hurts him. And then now you've seen these really bad games from him. And it's like nobody thinks he's playable at all anymore, when I think the truth is really somewhere in the middle. So he'd be a pretty interesting tournament play if he is starting.
Priorities from Milwaukee.
Giannis, Connaughton, kind of like not in the sense of priority that I actually want to play a lot of, but priority like that's just going to show up a good amount.
And Pacers, pretty news dependent, but TJ McConnell obviously makes sense, but we're both a little bit lower on him. I think today specifically, there's an opportunity to get Nembhard back in. Does your opinion on McConnell change if Nembhard's out?
It makes him look marginally better just because I think it increases the playing time because there's just less bodies that they have to give minutes to. But yeah, I mean, as far as priorities from Indiana, I think it's McConnell and Hield, but McConnell, again, I just think he's going a little bit over-owned here. I think Hield's going a little bit over-owned as well. But still, just in terms of like who should you be getting to the most from Indiana, it's those guys. I didn't mention it, though, but Miles Turner, I think, is a really interesting tournament play as well. He is questionable. If he's out, I don't know who starts. We saw Isaiah Jackson back him up last game. We've seen Jalen Smith in the past. We've seen James Johnson start in his place. Like, I don't know who would start. But if he's out, if Jalen Smith or Isaiah Jackson are starting, they're good value plays. But assuming Turner's in, you're likely getting 30-plus minutes from him, especially, assuming he avoids foul trouble. he's about a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy without Tyrese Halliburton on the floor. And he's another one of these centers where he would normally be getting a lot more ownership, except for you just have broken pricing on Gobert and Jared Allen. But Turner certainly can beat those guys more than 1 in 4 times, which is basically what ownership's suggesting.
3K Terry Taylor, 3K Jalen Smith, 3,200 Isaiah Jackson. This won't be a headache at all if he's out.
No, definitely not.
Oh my God. We move along, but first, BetMGM friends, if you guys go to the video description box below, you can get first bet insurance up to $1,000 along with 2 months of Stokastic Platinum free. Yeah, you heard me. 2 free months of Stokastic Platinum and your first bet going to be covered up to $1,000. So if you want to put in 100, you can get 100 back in first bet insurance. If you put in 500, so on and so forth. Whatever you feel comfortable with, signing up in the video description box below. When you sign up, you're going to get yourself access to 2 free months of Stokastic. And we have so many great advancements going. We just talked to all the data guys about the new lineup generator. I'm excited to talk about that with you guys a little bit later. That's available on mobile for you. Take advantage of that, especially in this phase where things are just changing drastically for it. So easy to use for NBA. You want to take a look at that pretty much ASAP. And then NBA projections, ownership projections, everything you could possibly want for that in conjunction with NFL. This will obviously cover that with the entire 2 free months that you get with it. Why wouldn't you take advantage of it? This is the easiest way to get Stokastic Platinum, and you get it for 2 months, 2 months by checking out BetMGM. Great sportsbook that you want to be a part of. First bet insurance up to $1,000. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 and over in most states. Cool. Let's go over to Memphis, Minnesota. They're up next. Memphis -3 going up against Minnesota, 237.5 total. And one guy to just kind of lead the conversation, Memphis, without Steven Adams, Desmond Bane questionable, but Brandon Clark really not pulling the kind of ownership I was expecting him to when I pulled up Cruncher here today. I'm not sure what to make of everything going up against Golden State last time out. He got the start, played 32 minutes. Why is he still sitting underneath 20% today?
Yeah, I have no idea, but I have him going quite under-owned here at that ownership.
Same.
It makes me think it probably comes up as the day goes on. I don't know if maybe the weird thing to me is, like, normally when we see that, I can look at projections and be like, oh, like, I think this is like a mistake and it's going to change. But we have him at 27 minutes. I think projecting him for 27 to 28 minutes is correct. So I don't know if maybe like the industry in general is lower on him and that's driving down his ownership projection or what. But if Brandon Clark starts, you should be expecting 27 or 28 minutes. That's what we've seen from him when he starts. If he comes off the bench, probably ignore him. He, as you can expect him to play around 18 minutes. He only played 12 the last time he came off the bench. So we don't know who is going to start in place of Adams, but assuming it's Brandon Clark, he has power forward eligibility. He's 4,900. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy. I think he's one of the best plays on the slate. And if his ownership actually does hold this low, I think that just makes it even more true.
We are on the same page. Weird to start with a guy who's only pulling 14% ownership in our projections, but I had to because
I think he should be like 30% owned.
I'm with you.
That is the number where I would start to say, like, okay, the ownership's where it should be.
And he's got power forward eligibility. It's not like he runs into center.
Right, exactly. Yeah, if he were center only, this whole conversation becomes a lot more interesting because it changes and you just get like, well, you can only play 2 of Clark, Gobert, Allen, but that's not the case. Like, in a cash lineup, I would think the way things look right now, your like first 3 guys in are probably Clark, Gobert, Allen, because you can play all of them.
Yeah, I love Brandon Clark today.
Yeah.
I hope,
and again, with the caveat that
he's
starts,
14%.
If he comes off the bench, just ignore all of this.
Correct. Then Xavier Tillman at 3,600. We need more centers. So that's
the thing. If Tillman starts, you do actually get that really interesting conversation because he is center only, but he's also 3,600. I'm still also just not confident at all in his playing time if he starts. Last time we saw him play like 30 minutes, looked like he was going to get more, but the game blew out. I just never, I don't trust it as much. Like I was saying to Josh this morning, I think that if you just like play this game 1,000 times, it's much more often that Tillman starts and plays 22 minutes and then Clark plays 26 off the bench than vice versa. Like, barring foul trouble, it's really hard to think of the situation where Brandon Clarke gets the start, but Xavier Tillman plays more minutes. It's more likely that, when Tillman starts, sometimes you just get Clarke play more minutes. So I think Tillman's minutes are a lot more volatile if he starts, but he's just cheap and, does give you a nice ceiling. If Clarke starts, barring foul trouble, blowout, injury, I don't see any reason to think he's playing less than 27 or 28 minutes.
With you. Hippopotamus, $9.99 super chat. The losing streaks wouldn't be so bad if you didn't blow half your winnings at a gentleman's club, Adam.
That is not incorrect. And yeah, it's not the first time I've thought about that when I'm losing.
You're like wiping your eyes like, what was that, Woody Harrelson in Zombieland?
Yeah,
just with the money. Just
texting the girls like, hey, so have you spent that yet?
Got him on dial, baby. That's how you know. How do you not have your jersey in the rafters yet somewhere?
The last time I was at the one in DC, the owner, I was just sitting at the bar hanging out because I knew one of the girls that works there, obviously. And I was just sitting there, and dude just comes up and bear hugs me. And I'm like, who is this? And I turn around, it's the owner of the place or the manager, whatever. Oh
no, you're that in. You're that into the family.
It was 2 weeks after I missed my flight to Chicago because I was still there.
That made you feel a little icky, didn't it? You're like, what am I doing today?
Well, I still felt icky from how much money I spent that night.
Yeah, that's probably the priority. Anyway, besides the fact, let's jump back over to Memphis. We're talking about Memphis. Ja Morant pulling quite a bit of ownership at 17%. I guess this would be a good time to talk about ranking some of the studs. And I think positionality is always very, very important. But we have 3 point guards that are all spend up options. Shea, Ja, Stephen Curry. How are we feeling about Ja compared to the other two?
I think that they're pretty similar. Ja getting 17% ownership right now, 10K. I think that makes perfect sense. I really just want to pay attention to ownership between these guys. Right now, you have 17% coming into Ja. You have 4 coming into Steph. I think that makes Steph interesting just as a pivot because even though I think Ja projects a little bit better point per dollar, the range of outcomes is certainly the same. Same can be said for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander here. Matchup sucks for SGA, but getting half the ownership of Ja makes it interesting because, again, I think all 3 of those guys are similar. It's sort of the more expensive version of what I was saying about Tyler Hero, D'Angelo Russell, and TJ McConnell. I think TJ McConnell's great. I just think Hero and Russell are pretty similar as well. That's what I think about this trio also. We have seen a little bit more playing time from Morant recently. Part of that's just because Memphis has actually been in close games, which is unusual for them. But it is good to actually see him getting 35 minutes in competitive games because that isn't always the case. Sometimes you still get 32 or 33.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing because I feel like the ownership's inflated a little bit to account for Desmond Bane questionable, if that makes sense. I don't really find the other two to be all that different. And we'll get to that Cleveland OKC game. I like getting Shai on the other side of it just for another piece of it. If you're going to be getting to a lot of Cleveland pieces, the Jared Allen piece, obviously, but lots of Cleveland interest. And I think, that just makes sense to be getting to some more of that. But Desmond Bane being questionable, that'll kind of be the other thing that's kind of hinging there. If Bane sits, who else becomes viable for you from Memphis?
So I think Zaire Williams probably moves into the starting lineup. That's not super exciting. He's a 0.7 fantasy point per minute guy. The minutes wouldn't be super secure because you could still, get David Roddy eating some of those, but I think he would look viable. He's small forward eligible. I assume he would start. If he starts, I think he looks okay. One interesting spot in tournaments, again, going back to that Giannis conversation where, if you are going to take some risks on lower owned cheap guys, Santi Aldama coming in at 6% owned at 3,300, you're clearly never going to be confident in him, but you are likely to get 18 to 20 minutes. Where he really shines, though, is if you get early Jaren Jackson foul trouble, he probably picks up a few more minutes, and he's not a bad point per minute guy, and at very low ownership, trying to get lucky on Jaren Jackson foul trouble is not the worst idea in the world.
Nope, he does it quite frequently, but I also like Jaren Jackson at 6,600. There's no doubt about it because this tag came down. He ended up having the dumbest foul I've ever seen against Draymond Green. Just unnecessary. Nothing like fouling Draymond Green 90 feet from the basket. Great idea. Idiot.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were watching that, but
I didn't see it. But also, in answer to your Desmond Bain question, if he's out, Dylan Brooks looks better as well.
yes.
You have a cheap $4,600 price tag on Brooks, and it is difficult. I mean, he's getting 16% ownership. That's fine. He's 4,600 shooting guard, small forward. But for all the jokes we make about Dylan Brooks' horrible shot selection, in the games that he plays with Morant, Bain, and Jackson, he's like a sub 20% usage guy. So you can't really expect him to be out there chucking if all those guys are in. But if Bain is out, that usage should go up for Brooks.
All right. Jordan saw it too, so that's good. I had the over of 24.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. And yeah, he finished with 23. Thanks, pal. Thanks for all your hard work. 3 fouls in like the last 3 minutes of play for him. Great stuff. So Jaren Jackson Jr.-esque. But let's jump over to the Minnesota side. We have Rudy Gobert. He seems like a good play today if he plays, Adam.
Yeah, I think whoever's starting for Minnesota is a very good play. It's just, I mean, we've had the Q tag on Gobert for a while. We had that one game where he started, got re-injured and just, played 10 minutes. But in the last couple of games, you've gotten 34 to 35 minutes. He's a 1.09 DraftKings point per minute guy without Karl-Anthony Towns this year. It's just it's a misprice. And you also don't have Steven Adams on the other side, so this gets even better. But, if you just assume he's playing like around 33 minutes on average, so 30 to 35 minutes, something like that. He's just going to look really, really good at 6,400. It's very, very difficult to get away from, even at that ownership projection. Like the ownership projection makes it at least, it makes it worth thinking about. Like he's probably going a little bit over owned at 44%, but it goes back to, you're not trying to make a lineup where every single player is under owned. When somebody has, a 30, or we have it at 42% chance of being optimal, even if he is going a bit over owned, that's still, this guy's still likely to be in the optimal lineup, like somewhere between 1/3 and half the time. So in a lot of spots, you're going to be like, okay, well, I want to take that guy, and then, just be different elsewhere, where there's, other popular players that are a lot lower chance of being optimal. So it's just a broken price on Rudy Gobert, and I really want to get there. If he's out, Naz Reid's salary is going down. He's 4,300, would project for around 28 minutes. Realistically, if he avoids fouls, Minnesota would like to play him like 36 based on the rotations we've seen when Gobert is out and when Reed's not in foul trouble, but projecting around 28, because of the foul risk and all of that, still just going to look like probably the best play on the slate if Reed is starting.
Minnesota, I guess maybe DraftKings just adjusted a lot of prices to be facing Memphis. They're second in adjusted defensive rating this season. Jaren Jackson Jr., a guy who's ascending the board for Defensive Player of the Year. But I don't give a shit when they're playing at the 4th fastest pace and these prices have come down to a ridiculous spot. Like D'Angelo Russell, 6,700. Anthony Edwards, 9K. Even a Kyle Anderson. If Kyle Anderson is out there without Rudy Gobert, that could be really fun. Jaden McDaniels always a cheap small forward option that you can get to for positionality. Obviously, Naz Reid if there's no Rudy Gobert, but assuming Gobert plays, who else stands out to you from Minnesota?
The rest of the starters, just still very reasonable pricing here, and you're getting ownership as a result. Anthony Edwards pulling 18%, 9K, shooting guard, small forward, no problems with that. He probably will be getting most of Dylan Brooks following him around and being annoying. Brooks a pretty good on-ball defender, but still, very, very high ceiling for Anthony Edwards. D'Angelo Russell at 6,700, mentioned him a couple of times in passing, but, he's getting 22% ownership right now. I think that's pretty much in line with where he should be. So not going nearly as over-owned as somebody like McConnell. I think McConnell projects a little bit better at a little bit cheaper price tag, but not by enough to justify basically 2 times the ownership. Kyle Anderson at 5,500 is just going to be pretty easy to get into lineups. He's been about a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy in the games he's played with Gobert and without Karl-Anthony Towns. He gets assists. He's not a high usage guy, but he's efficient enough. He rebounds well enough. Just a pretty useful piece. And then similarly, you should get 32 to 34 minutes from Jaden McDaniels at 4,500. Not a great point per minute guy, about 0.75 fantasy points per minute, but that gets it done when you're only 4,500.
Yes, it surely does. Priorities from the Memphis side. Brandon Clark.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Clark, if he starts. And then I think it's kind of just like Morant, Jackson, Bain, Brooks all look similar relative to salary and positions and all of that. I wouldn't say any of them are priorities in that, like, I expect to just be jamming them in as like a top 5 owned guy, but they all just look like good plays.
All right, we got an awesome super chat here, $19.99 from Troubled35. Thank you for all the wisdom, gents. You're both amazing. Posted elsewhere, but both of your videos last night contributed to shipping 15K. Eric, specifically, kudos on Alec Burks. Did you play Alec Burks last night with the late start?
No.
Good job.
Because I didn't even notice he was starting.
It came out 3 minutes before lock. So
so what it was like I had my lineups made, and I'm looking at them, waiting to put them into because I was playing 3 max and single entry, not just like grabbing my top 150. And so I'm waiting to see the Pistons lineup, and I'm paying attention to the front court because I wanted to know can I play my Jalen Duren lineups or not? So I see Duren starting and Stewart's not. And so I'm like, all right, I can play Duren. I can skip the Stewart lineups. I didn't even bother checking the backcourt because Killian Hayes wasn't even on the injury report. And so I just okay, cool. So I skip over my Stewart lineups, play my Duren lineups. And then after the game starts, I'm like, oh shit, I probably should have tried to swap to Malik Burks.
Yeah. I mean, that's where it's helpful to be on a show sometimes. Cause if I'm just building stuff out in my own place, I'm organizing things a little bit differently. I'm probably playing hockey too, like I am tonight. And it's what a bad idea that would be to kind of not be paying attention to that. But when you're on a show, you're actively paying attention to each piece of news as it's coming in. You should be on more live before locks, Adam.
Yeah, definitely. And I was paying attention to the news. I just didn't read the entire tweet. I saw the 2 names that I wanted, Bay and Duren. And I was like, all right, I don't need to read any more of this.
Yeah, that was the only reason I was paying attention to it to see whether or not Stewart started. But
yeah, I was paying. I didn't know if they were going to start. I thought for sure Stewart was starting. I just didn't know if Duren was or not.
Yeah, the Hayes not being there thing was pretty wild. Clutch, Eric, thank you. It was nice. Appreciate it. I had 92% of him, so that was enjoyable. I didn't think I was getting 30 minutes. I put him for 26, but still got about as good of a run out on a fantasy. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have done it. But something that I want all of you to do, and I would do, is play No House Advantage. This is the spot for everybody. Anything else from that game first before we move on? Memphis, Minnesota?
No.
Cool. No House Advantage. Then we're going to head over there. And I don't really know what to say other than Overlay is your best friend. When it comes to everything in the DFS space, when you have Overlay, you have built-in winnings before you even start. And sometimes it gets to that break-even spot where it's not necessarily Overlay, you're playing reduced rake type contests, but for the most part, a No House Advantage, I haven't seen a contest fill forever. I would love to see that because, again, they're a great sponsor, great friend of ours here at Stokastic, but they are giving you guys the opportunity to play reduced rake or rake free or just flat out Overlay, which is what it most likely is almost every single night over there. You're playing player props. You adjust them 10 through 1. You put the most confident plays at the top. And if you don't have the time, you simply head to the free NBA DFS data tab that we have over at Stokastic. Group it by No House Advantage and take advantage of our projections directly on the page for you. There's one stone cold, no doubt about it, lock that exists tonight. Did you see the Chris Middleton line on No House Advantage today, Adam Scherer?
No, I didn't.
I want you to just guess what it is. If you had to guess points plus rebounds plus assists for Chris Middleton tonight, what would you put it at?
I can answer that in a second. 16.
He is at 29.5.
That's high.
16. We're talking 13.5 difference between your projections, between the Stokastic projections, and between that number. That is absurd. It's a dude that I projected to play 16 minutes tonight, and if he hits that number, God help us all. But I'm saying that's just a stone cold, no doubt about it. Don't think about it twice type lock that exists on today's slate. So check out No House Advantage. Start with that in the 10-point confidence slot and then fill out the rest of your lineups. You can do that with the free projections we have, the free optimal lineups that we have over at Stokastic. You don't even have to be a member to be able to check that out. So do that. Use promo code Stokastic when you sign up. Get yourself up to a $100. Yeah, $100 first match deposit bonus. And hey, you guys like some other sites where you're playing player props together, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. They have versus the house now in NBA, in NHL, in college basketball. I've seen lines out for that too. Take advantage of everything behind the paywall that we have here at Stokastic. Help inform those decisions, and you can win up to 21x your money by getting 5 out of 5. There's other sites where you'll only get 10x your money. We're talking a drastic difference in your ROI over a long period of time. Playing your player props over at No House Advantage, I mean, that's literally double. You're getting 21x your money, 21x on that 5 out of 5. So take advantage of it. Promo code Stokastic. Play some of the rake-free contests that seem to be popping up every single night over at NHA and start winning some money. Enjoy it. Thank you so much to our sponsor, No House Advantage. Absolutely love what they're doing over there. To the third game of the night we go, and it is a biggie. Let's spend some time. Cleveland, OKC. Cleveland now, 1.5 dogs to OKC. What a time to be alive, but we got the news nice and early this time around. Donovan Mitchell, doubtful to play here. Kevin Love out yet again here. Oh boy. Evan Mobley running it back. Jared Allen running it back. Darius Garland running it back. Where do we even start with this team tonight?
I think it's basically four guys here look great, or at least good. And then the rest is kind of like tournament dart throws. But Jared Allen, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, you can just feel very confident in those guys. You're likely getting around 36 minutes from Mobley, should get around 34 from Allen, probably around 36 from Garland, barring foul trouble, injuries, all of that. And they just all look really good. Jared Allen's one of the broken price centers that we've talked about. He's pulling 46% ownership right now. He's just a very good point per minute guy that's likely to play huge minutes. If this game is competitive down to the wire, you can conceivably get 36 plus from Allen. 34 is just, a medium projection basically. So just again, can he fail? Sure. He can get in foul trouble. He can get hurt. But if he plays his normal minutes and doesn't pay off a 6K price tag, you ran really, 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 really poorly. The bigger question is more it's just, he could have a good game and, pay off 6K. But if he just loses by 10 to Miles Turner or something, you're still losing to Miles Turner lineups. So that's where those tournament pivots make sense. But very obviously a priority here. Evan Mobley at 6,800 with power forward eligibility, clearly a priority. Garland looks fantastic at 8,300. We only have 17% projected ownership coming into Karis LeVert. That seems pretty interesting to me because I actually think, given his positional eligibility and price tag, that he's the guy I'll get to the most. He's the guy out of those four. He's the guy that I feel the least confident in, but also probably the one that shows up in my lineups the most, just because there's less competition for $5,200 shooting guard / small forward guys than there are for center only or point guard only or, Evan Mobley power forward center. So I think that ownership on LeVert comes up. Right now, we do have him 31% chance of being optimal, 17% ownership. I think that ownership probably comes up to around 30%, which is where I think it should be. So, probably changes between now and lock. But those four guys, very, very clear priorities. Then you get to $3,700 Isaac Okoro, $3,200 Chetty Osman, $3K Dean Wade. There's a path for any of those guys to have success. We got 18 first half minutes from Isaac Okoro yesterday. He only ended up playing around 25, 26 minutes. I think projecting him around 28 makes sense, but if he's playing well, you certainly could get a much bigger game. You don't have Rubio, you don't have Love. So I expect Howell Neto to just step in and play 16 minutes. But let's say Neto just plays 8. That would probably mean more minutes than expected for Chetty or for Dean Wade, potentially. They're cheap. They're unowned. They're probably not going to do well, but they let you get Giannis in a contrarian lineup, for example.
Yeah, 17 and a half minutes from Ricky Rubio is kind of the tough one for me to allocate to other guys from last night. As you're trying to space it around, I think Chetty's the guy I probably have the most interest. He played 24 minutes last night. He did close the game, which got way out of hand. You did have Jared Allen and Darius Garland playing further into that game than I probably expected, but
I was really surprised how deep into the game those guys played. In my my highest buy in single entry yesterday, I had all four of the main Cleveland guys, and it was oh cool, they're smashing, and none of them are going to come back in the fourth, so I'm screwed. And then they surprisingly played a ton. But yeah, so I think I would rank the cheap shitty guys as Okoro 1, Osman 2, Wade 3, and I think Osman is closer to Okoro than he is to Wade.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Wade was the first guy who checked in along with Ricky Rubio. Which the reason I thought was pretty interesting last night.
What'd you say?
I thought that was pretty interesting last night.
Yeah, so did I. The reason I prefer Chetty is, for one, he's just
better fantasy.
He's slightly better point per minute, but he can handle the ball a little. He can just do more stuff than Dean Wade. So I think if you do get, like I said, I gave Neto 16 minutes, but let's say Neto only plays 8. I think it's likely that Chetty's playing extra minutes. He can handle the ball, he can facilitate a little bit, whereas Dean Wade is basically out there to take open threes. So I think it's just a little bit more difficult for Wade to walk into a bunch of extra minutes. So that's why I would lean toward Chetty. But again, you could just get more minutes for Dean Wade.
He's had some weird stock games too as you're going through it. I mean, 3 stocks last night. There's times when he's played 28, 31 minutes where he just kind of gets a bunch of them. And I don't think that that's going to be something that he does very much long-term. That seems pretty wild to me. Averages like 0.7 steals a game. Yeah, that was a pretty wild outcome for him. 23 minutes, performed over a fantasy point per minute last night. I think I'm with you. Like Isaac Okoro was the guy that I did take some shots on yesterday. Probably going to be getting to a little bit more Chetty just based on what we saw yesterday, hoping that maybe he gets more of them because, as you said, he does more than what Okoro can do. Okoro going back to his Auburn days, then to the NBA, more of a defensive-minded player. But regardless, he's a 0.63 fantasy point per minute producer. There's that too.
Yeah. Also, we got an ownership update. So Karis LeVert now at 38%.
That's better.
On DraftKings. Makes a lot more sense. Puts him in that range where like he's over-owned, but not by enough that I'm really going to be looking to get away from him. Mobley's at 36, Garland's at 37, Allen's at 50. It's just the really tricky thing on this slate is it's very, very, very obvious who the good plays are, but you also don't really want to be playing large field tournaments where you're just jamming in like four of them, 30+% on guys. So, it just goes back to what we talk about a lot, where you're paying attention to your individual lineups. You can be heavy on all of these really good plays and still have good individual lineups. It's not, you shouldn't be looking at like your exposures and be like, oh, I'm playing too chalky because I played a lot of Jared Allen or I played a lot of Darius Garland. If in your individual lineups, you're doing a good job of getting a couple of low-owned players in them all, you're still likely to be getting to a lot of these really good plays as well.
All right. Timely super chat from Jerry Man, $5. Would you set in only one rule for Allen and Mosley? They're both underpriced in my opinion, but do they eat each other's stats? For the love of God, do not do that.
Yeah, don't do that. I mean, marginally in the sense where like if Jared Allen gets hurt, Evan Mobley's playing a bunch of minutes at the 5, and that's very, very, very good for Evan Mobley. So in that sense, yeah, they negatively correlate, but they also positively correlate in that they're playing without Donovan Mitchell. They're in an appealing spot. If this game ends up being higher scoring than expected, they're both benefiting. If the game goes to overtime, they're both benefiting. Like there's always, whenever you talk about somebody teammates eating into each other's stats, I think people tend to overlook the positive correlations that come with being on the same team as well. So, I certainly wouldn't like they obviously play minutes alongside each other. They both start. The only time really that I set max one rules is when you get a situation where player A is not going to be on the floor with player B.
Chris G, I'm not reading that propaganda. Jordan doesn't work enough. It's absolute propaganda. We spend as much time on Cleveland as possible because it deserves to be spending as much time as possible on this slate. The other games should go relatively quickly, but anything else you want to recap for Cleveland before we go on?
No.
Cool. Play a lot of them, right?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, Keith Woodford would forecast in chat if I set rules to make sure I get a certain amount of players for one team. No, it just is going to naturally happen.
Keep working, Jordan Klein. To OKC, Isaiah Joe. Hey, Joe, where you going with that gun in your hand? Sorry.
Oh, man, we made it 48 minutes before you started singing.
Yeah, well, last 12 minutes. Can't say that anymore, schmuck. 4K Isaiah Joe pulling the most ownership. What a time to be alive, right?
Yeah, I don't get this one. I guess like people are expecting him to start. My guess is that Aaron Wiggins starts.
Same.
So this is a question mark that, I don't know. It's OKC. You could get literally somebody that we've never heard of starting. But my guess is that it's Aaron Wiggins. And the one thing I will say is in Aaron Wiggins starts this year, he's averaged 30 minutes per game. I would project him for about 28 if he starts, just to try and account for OKC being a ridiculous rotation. But if Aaron Wiggins starts, he's not a good point per minute guy, but he is 3,100, and I do think he ends up being a pretty appealing value piece. If Isaiah Joe starts at 4K, sure, play him. I think, I haven't projected to come off the bench right now. I gave him 22 minutes. That puts him around 20 fantasy points. So perfectly reasonable option. But like with the way ownership is right now, it's just, you kind of need the starting lineup, because if the starting lineup is what I think it is, then Aaron Wiggins just isn't going to be sub 1% owned, and Isaiah Joe is not going to be 12%. Beyond that, though, Shea is getting 8% ownership. We kind of mentioned him earlier when we talked about Morant. It's a brutal matchup for him. Very, very good Cleveland defense. But overall this year, 1.4 DraftKings points per minute for SGA. He should play 35 plus minutes, assuming that this game's competitive. He's just not... The difference in projection between him and Morant just doesn't justify him getting half the ownership of Morant. So in tournaments, I like SGA. In like a cash format, if you're getting to one of them, you would go to Morant first. But I like the SGA pivot. Giddy, we know the ceiling he has. He is just at a price point that I think is kind of difficult to get to at 7,800. He's pulling 6% ownership. I think that's fine, but you're probably getting around 32 minutes from him. Trey Mann at 3K, pulling 7% ownership. He is incredibly risky because he typically doesn't play that many minutes. Certainly possible he walks into a little bit more playing time with Lou Dort out, but also far from a given. So at 3K, if you want to gamble and hope to get lucky, sure, it's not really any different than gambling on Chetty or Dean Wade or something like that. It's probably not going to work out, but when it does, it puts you in a really, really good situation.
Agreed. Really good breakdown there. Hit the like button, everybody. How about that? Hit the like button for my guy, Adam, hanging out with his boy, Lindy, here on a Friday. He's getting the weekend started right, in my generous, lovely opinion. That's for sure. How much fun are you having right now, Adam? So much fun?
Yeah, man, I'm having a blast.
Good. See, I love the enthusiasm, just like I love the lineup generator. Really great stuff over here at Stokastic that's going full bore for you guys. We are here to help you make lineups. Let's just theoretically say that you don't have a lot of time on your hands and you need to find some kind of way to make some lineups in a pinch. Here you go. Or maybe you're pinching one out and you want to make a lineup on the toilet, doing your thing. Lineup generator is for you. And right now, 50% off your first week, $8.95 after that, just $8.95 for the lineup generator. Check this stuff out. You could take, let's say that you wanted to build some contrarian lineups based around SGA. We just talked about him. You can legitimately take him specifically and build contrarian or balanced lineups around those players specifically. You can look at the boom bust tool, boom percentage. You can rank them there. You can take the guys who are the most capable of booming on this slate. You can plug them into lineups immediately. It's such a great tool. Check this out. I can't tell you what a great job the data team's been doing on a day-to-day basis, updating us on these things. You can export up to 20 lineups at a time, putting together all these individual players, build out balanced lineups with Stokastic's industry-leading projections. What are you waiting for? Check out that tab right now and hit the like button. Once again, hit that like button for Adam. He has to deal with me. This is his sins. His sins have brought us here. But we go to Orlando and Miami. The last game of this early wave, we have one standalone game, Toronto Golden State. We'll talk about that one to round it out, but we're looking at 8.5. So this line's moved a little bit going towards the Miami side of it. 219 total, very, very low. And Orlando, you did get Jonathan Isaac ruled out, which is 10 minutes going elsewhere, but there are so many healthy bodies. Now the prices are starting to come down, a lot of red arrows that exist over there on the old Fantasy Cruncher page. So you're starting to get Markelle Fultz. You're starting to get Paolo Banchero to playable levels, but how do you prioritize anybody on this team on a slate like this?
To me, it's just a tournament team where there's not one guy where I expect to just be saying like, oh, the big edge to this slate is jamming in Markelle Fultz against the Miami Heat. Like, that's not how I see this, but Carter, Fultz, Banchero, Franz Wagner, all pulling 6 to 10% ownership. I think they're all just going slightly under-owned, and they are good ways to make your lineup contrarian. Like we were just saying, there's very, very, very clear-cut top plays on this slate, but in large field tournaments, you're not trying to just jam them all into a lineup together. You're trying to mix and match guys, and using these Orlando guys does make sense because you are likely to get around 30 minutes from a $5,600 Fultz. You're likely to get around 30 minutes from a 6K Wendell Carter Jr. In a lineup here and there, if you have a chalky lineup, but it's a similar roster construction in terms of like where you're paying up, where you're paying down, Wendell Carter Jr. is not a 10-1 dog to beat Jared Allen tonight. He's a big dog, but it's not close to 10-1. So that's the kind of spot where like you can just hope to get lucky there. And, you know, that lineup is really strong. And then if Carter beats Allen, you're in really good shape. You're not going into the slate saying like, oh yeah, the advantage on this slate is just playing Wendell Carter Jr. more than I'm playing Jared Allen. But that's a spot you can pivot in tournaments. Paolo Banchero at 7K, Franz Wagner at 6,200, shooting guard, small forward. They're all just going, I think, a little bit under-owned, but not guys that like you're going crazy on, just in lineups here and there. They're good tournament plays. The rest of this team is kind of interesting, but also kind of not. They're interesting in the same way as like Chetty Osman and Dean Wade. I'm very curious to see what happens with the Jonathan Isaac minutes. I projected Terrence Ross to be in the rotation for like 10 to 12 minutes. If they go that route, then that probably means you're getting like 24 minutes for Cole Anthony, which at 4,500 makes him look completely mediocre. You're probably getting like 17, 18 minutes for Jalen Suggs. You're probably getting 17, 18 minutes for Bol Bol. Makes them all just pretty unappealing. The way that they look good, though, or potentially good, is let's say they don't put Terrence Ross back in the rotation. They just have 8 minutes available to go somewhere. And let's say they don't spread it out evenly. You just go from the normal, say, 16 minutes for Jalen Suggs to 22 minutes. Then suddenly you have a $3,200 Jalen Suggs at no ownership playing 22 minutes. I don't think that's the most likely outcome, but it's certainly possible. Same goes for Bol at 3,900.
That's the guy.
17 minutes, not very interesting. Suddenly plays 22, 23 minutes, very interesting. So they're risky. I think it's a spot where medium projections are just, you're not really going to get there. But, if you are playing large field tournaments and you are willing to take on some risk, getting to a little bit of these guys and kind of just hoping the rotation breaks your way makes some sense.
Yeah, Bol was kind of the guy that I highlighted. I have a little tournament interest there, but let's jump over to the Miami side where I do not know what to make of Jimmy Butler at this point in time. It's so weird because he's a 1.22 fantasy point per minute producer. He's been right around 1.19, even in the month of January this year. So I don't know what to make of recent struggles. And this price tag is egregiously low. And on other slates where you don't have Cleveland, we would be talking about Jimmy Butler being the highest owned piece of this slate. There's positive leverage in the boom bust tool right now. I don't know what to think about it. Help me out.
I think he looks good, but like you said, Cleveland's what messes it up. He's only power forward eligible. He's more expensive than Evan Mobley. It makes him and he's still pulling 20% ownership. So it's a way where you can be different. He's not making it so that like you're super contrarian, but you are saving some ownership if you were to go to him over Mobley, for example. I do think it's too cheap of a price tag. If he had small forward and power forward, he'd be a lot more popular. With just power forward, though, I still think he's a good play. I expect him to get around 34 minutes. I'm not overly concerned about what he's done recently. Obviously, the fact that he's been banged up doesn't make you feel great, but the salary just alleviates most of those concerns. Bam Adebayo, 8,400 looks fine. The problem with him is just this center position is so ridiculous. Tyler Hero to me is the top guy from Miami. He's 6,900, so you're like $400 more than McConnell. I think 100 or 200 more than Russell. I have Hero at 34 minutes, and so do we, but it wouldn't be surprising at all if he exceeds that. Overall this year in the games he's played with Butler and Bam, he's averaged about 34 minutes per game. But prior to his most recent absence, he was getting like 36, 37 minutes, 38 minutes in competitive games. Then he played around 30 to 32 in his first couple games back. In his last two, he's been back to around 36 minutes. Granted, last game, Jimmy Butler was out. So I think 34 is a fair projection. And at 34, he looks similar enough to TJ McConnell and D'Angelo Russell that if he's going to be the lowest owned of the trio, I'm certainly happy to just kind of flip flop and say like, all right, well, I'm going to play the most Hero, the second most Russell, and the least McConnell of those three. And just hope that it works out that way. I just think he looks like a very good option here. It's still a very reasonable price tag. So I think he's probably the easiest to get to out of Butler, Bam, and himself.
Last guy is Kyle Lowry dust.
I mean, yeah, he is, but he's also 4,700. The biggest issue with Lowry is like, I have a hard time going north of 30 minutes on him. Spoelstra, when he came back, Spoelstra said that he wasn't going to be playing the same huge minutes that he had been. He didn't specify how long that's going to last. So I am fully expecting to just get a game soon where he plays 34 minutes and, you're kind of screwed. But assuming he plays around 30 minutes and knowing that Adebayo, Hero, and Butler are all in, it makes him just kind of look like a neutral play. He's getting 10% ownership. I think that's about where he should be.
All righty. Last game of the night, my friend. Last game of the night. Anything else for Miami?
Nope.
Cool. Toronto, Golden State. We're going to round it out there. We're going to turn it over to Greg Ehrenberg, Neil Orfield, my dudes. Coming up on Live Before Lock, they're going to be with you for 90 minutes. 90 minutes, talking the ins and outs. I've been replaced by Neil. I'm okay with that. I'm okay. Going to be building out lineups. It'll be just
I wish that
fine.
Replacement had started at 5.
Shut up. Toronto +5. Golden State 235.5 total. Precious. Oh, my precious. Pulling the most ownership. Talk to me about him.
I don't get why.
I don't either. Isaiah Joe and him just make no sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think Precious Achiuwa is a good point per dollar projection. I expect him to play around 24 minutes. If anybody gets in foul trouble, he probably plays a little bit more. Or if he just plays really well down the stretch like he did last game, he probably plays a little bit more. But the thing is that he's center only on DraftKings. And so if you're going to him, you're necessarily not getting one of Gobert or Jared Allen, not to mention these other really good centers. So that's kind of the issue I'm running into, especially at high ownership. If he were low owned, I would think he's an interesting value option. You can be contrarian going there. It naturally would make you contrarian because it means you don't have one of Allen or Gobert. But you're getting 17% ownership. So you're still competing with a ton of lineups that are playing him. I think he might just be getting kind of artificially inflated because of his recent games. But two of those games, you had players out for Toronto, which is why he played so many minutes. Last game, he played about 12 and a half minutes in the first half. He played the entire fourth quarter because he was playing well, and OG Anunoby sat most of the quarter. That's not a normal rotation. I don't think you can expect that to consistently happen. So I think he's a good point per dollar play. I don't like the ownership coming into him. I think it's too high. I do like the rest of this team in tournaments because they're not getting as much ownership. Siakam, Van Vliet, Barnes, Anunoby, all sub 10%. Gary Trent Jr. at 6,300, 11% owned. I understand why these guys are not priorities because you just have Cleveland, you have mispriced Gobert, you have Minnesota in general. But this is a very appealing spot against Golden State and pretty appealing price tags in general. So OG at 5,900, Trent at 6,300 in particular, I think are pretty good ways to differentiate. Barnes, obviously a little bit more expensive. Siakam center only makes it tough. But if you can get there, great. He's power forward on FanDuel, so that makes it a little bit easier. And then 8K Van Vliet. The reason that he's not more popular and that he's tough to get to is that he's almost the same price as Darius Garland, who obviously projects better. He's more expensive than that Hero, McConnell, Russell tier. So it kind of puts him in no man's land. But you're talking about somebody that can just go score 55, 60 DraftKings points, and it doesn't matter what his salary is. You need him to win. So from that aspect, I think that he's a good contrarian tournament play as well.
Yeah, tough back-to-back for Toronto. At Golden State, at Portland. Enjoy that. But yeah, I do expect that rotation. I was thinking against Golden State, maybe they tighten it up and kind of like play the starters extra. Hard to do on a back-to-back, I would say.
Also hard to do when you're Toronto because they already play the starters extra.
I know. Chris Boucher has been more prominent in the rotation. A couple of these guys, just something to be paying attention to just because he's gone to 23, 22 minutes the last two. And being on a back-to-back, I do expect him to continue to play and continue to fill in. And it just makes Precious Achiuwa just somebody that I'm not interested in.
Yeah, I was gonna say Boucher. Like I have zero confidence in Boucher. Like I at least believe pretty strongly that Achiuwa is like gonna play a big role in the rotation here. Boucher, I think probably does, but also I've rostered Boucher on DNP games already this year, so anything can happen. But I do think like if you're getting 17% ownership to Achiuwa at center only and 3% to Boucher with power forward instead of center, that's not a bad pivot in large field tournaments. Like, it's not one that I'm going to make in small field, but in large field, it's fine.
So, Adam, for Precious Achiuwa, I do the Smeagol on the front end, and then I do Achiuwa. Do you like those?
No.
Okay.
So anyway, for Golden State.
There we go. All you.
Oh, okay. It's kind of similar to Toronto, where I think they're a good tournament team, but there's nobody that you should really be prioritizing just because other options look better. Draymond Green's pulling 10%, Clay's pulling 12%. They both look good. Clay's got shooting guard, small forward eligibility now, which makes him a little bit easier to get to. Should get around 32 minutes from Draymond, should get around 34 from Clay. But then, we are waiting on Andrew Wiggins news. I'm not really interested in him one way or the other. But if he's out, you're probably getting a 4K Kuminga in the starting lineup, which would look like a pretty good value piece. I have a hard time getting to Jordan Poole just because his rates do come down as a starter. And we also haven't seen huge minutes from him as a starter. I think expecting around 32 minutes makes sense. But where I am interested in tournaments, I think Steph Curry projects in that same range as John Morant and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And he's getting 3% ownership. Like, yeah, he's $400 more expensive than Morant, $500 more than SGA, but that's not that big of a difference. And I think it's just a spot where you can pay up slightly to be contrarian and get a massive ceiling.
Love it. 10-4 for him. I'll fire him up. Nothing like leaving on. If you had to rank the starters, give me your 3 favorite starters from Golden State according to ownership right now.
Clay, Draymond, Steph.
Same. That's the same 3. I'm not getting to Poole.
If Kuminga starts, then probably Clay, Draymond, Kuminga. But if Wiggins is in, it's Clay, Draymond, Steph.
All right, y'all. That is the deeper dive. Anything else for the people before we get out of here, Adam?
Nope.
You have so much fun today. I had fun.
Great time.
Cool. Well, that does it. Thanks to Jordan Klein for producing. He's going to be sticking around. He deserves to. Keep working. No days off. No days off. Bill Belichick. He set the precedent. Get out of here. Hit that like button for my guys. Greg, Neil, coming up next on Live Before Live. You made it, Adam.
Yo, it's that time of week again. Time to induct all you fine people into the Hall of Fame. Give out some free months of Stokastic plus Platinum in the process. Some big winners this past week, so we're about to dive into it. Of course, all you got to do to get involved, get your name up here. Have us do the bragging for you. Get the free month of Stokastic and get inducted into the Hall of Fame right here on the Stokastic YouTube. Download the Stokastic profile picture, stokastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stokastic Hall of Fame, at Stokastic HOF. And get that free month. Just finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and we got you. Just like, how about Braden V coming in hot? Took down the big one last night. Shout out to all the content you guys and time and effort into doing every day. Love the YouTube vids. $87,000 win. What a way to kick this off. I told you we had some big wins this week. Like Bobby Nissan, this dude's just been crushing through and through. Almost took down 3 GPPs last night. So close, but what a great run. Got to thank Awesemo DFS and all the great tools and staff at Stokastic. If you're not a sub, it's costing you money. And then you see Bobby again. And shout out to Bobby, too, because he's running one lineup across all of the. I mean, look at those entry fees. $102,000 there. Big thanks to Stokastic. Your DFS tools are the best. Thanks to the crew for the great content you guys put out there every day. Let's keep the print fest going. Yeah, Michael Penn certainly did. The Hammer, 333 with a $40,000 win. Best content and projections around. Can't thank you guys enough. It's a huge one. See, it doesn't stop either. One of the best NHL analysts out there. Josh, I hate the fact that I have to, you know what? I'm not even reading this one. I'll let you guys read this to yourselves. It makes me uncomfortable, but the $20,000 win is fantastic for Josh. Check that NHL content out right here on the channel. And how about Elder Breaks? Taking one down in single entry. Daniel Jones let me down, but guess I'm a Hurts fan now, as you should be. $5,300 win there in the fair catch. And then Kevin Driscoll, huge thanks and all the hard work from the Stokastic team. Took down the first solo win of the year. Keep the content coming. What is that, $2 in the $2,000 in the Thursday NBA pick and roll? Beautiful. Love to see that ROI. And D. Spearman, first solo win of the year. We got another one. First solo win of the year. I want to try out my free membership for this NFL playoff weekend. Thank you, guys. Congrats, man. Yeah, quarter jukebox into the $100. Again, massive ROI. And it doesn't matter. If you guys are in a nickel or quarter arcade, as long as you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, you're getting up here, and you're still getting the free month of Stokastic plus Platinum. Michael Cooney, shout out to the Stokastic crew. Last month, I purchased U-Alls and another, that's a tough one, and another premium sub. Not going to throw shade. Used theirs for 3 weeks, realized I had Stokastic. Used single game showdown tool. Bam, $834 on the play action. Congrats, man. Glad to have you here. And Scoot, how about Scoot? First time using you guys last night, and just wow, keep it up. Loving it so far. $320 on $11 in entries. And we close it out with these two. Brian Walton, 2nd and 5th in the NBA fadeaway on FanDuel. Glad they actually ran the contest. Thanks for the great content and analysis. Not much turning 31 in the 358, but I will take it. Best content analysis around. Thanks, Brian. And lastly, Andrew Hannon, thanks to all the hard work and people in front of the camera and behind the scenes at Stokastic. Never placed in the top 100 of the Minimax before. Now I have 4. This is crazy. New best for me. 3rd place, $250. Remember, at Stokastic Hall of Fame. Shoot your wins to us with the screenshot. Rock the Stokastic avatar. Get up here and get your free month of Stokastic plus Platinum.
Yo, everybody, what is happening? Welcome to the Stokastic NBA Live Before Lock Show. And I'm excited because it's Friday, and not for the first time today, the second time today, I'm doing a show with Neil. Neil also decided to come back this week because last week he did his first NBA Live Before Lock show with us on Friday night. It went well. He came back for another Friday. Neil, what's happening? How does it feel to do 2 shows with me in one day? This has to be one of the better days of your life.
It's so amazing to get to do two shows. I'm only a little disappointed because we don't have our usual Saturday NFL show, so that's a kind of a bummer for me that we don't get to talk tomorrow. But I'll get my fill of you tonight, I guess. Another hour and a half here, and I'm excited because this is the first slate that I'm going to be able to talk about the Timberwolves. Last week we had so many games, and the Timberwolves were not on the schedule. This week we get the Timberwolves on a 5-game slate, so I can just tell you right off the bat, just lock in into your lineups. It's simple.
What are you going to be doing instead tomorrow?
I'm going to be doing a show with Spags tomorrow when you're not on the show. You're the one who's not on the show.
Yeah, it's true. So it's actually my dad's birthday tomorrow. I'm going to be going into New York City. We're going out to dinner. I'm going to see Louis C.K. at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And, it's funny because something that kind of comes to mind. So as a lot of people know, my background, I started in comedy. Have you ever seen people, if you're in New York City, go to Times Square and there's people that are trying to get you to go into comedy shows, like sell tickets or get you to come in?
No, I lived in New York City for a couple of years and don't think I went to a single comedy show. And I enjoy comedy shows, but yeah, it's not an experience I had.
So I used to, that was a job I used to have, to get stage time at comedy shows. I would have to sell tickets out on the street. And most of these people are absolute shitbags that you have to do this for. And there was this guy who told us to just lie. He'd be like, it's going to be you on stage, but tell him it's going to be Chris Rock. Tell him it's going to be Louis C.K. And that was something that we had to do to sell tickets. So you set yourself up to fail in that kind of situation. Be like, hey, Louis C.K. is going to be performing. And then they go to the show, expect to see Louis C.K. and it's just me, the guy who sold them the ticket, who they've never seen in their entire life. So those went really poorly. But anyway, that's the story of the time I met Louis C.K. It was the time I pretended that I was him, and I never was. So
as chat is pointing out, Greg, I thought that Louis C.K. was canceled, and now he's coming back. It sounds like he's paid his dues, I guess, and people are ready to give Louis C.K. a second chance.
I mean, it's not like he went anywhere. He just,
I know.
He just stayed home for a little bit. And now he's doing comedy again. And this is what my brother got for like the whole family for Christmas. Is we all got tickets and it lined up with my dad's birthday. So going to see Louis C.K. tomorrow, Madison Square Garden. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to dinner as well, but also looking forward to tonight's NBA slate. As you guys come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you have questions for myself or Neil, at me in Discord. If you guys have super chats, throw those into YouTube. We'll be answering all of those throughout the show. And as far as the injury report goes today, it's pretty tame. We don't have all that much to really talk about in terms of injuries. Rudy Gobert is questionable. Desmond Bane is questionable. Andrew Wiggins is questionable. I think the Rudy Gobert one is Fugazi. I think he's good to go. Like, he's been questionable every game for a while now. He's played in the last couple. I have no concerns about it. Are you kind of on the same page as me?
Yeah, I'm same page. He's been questionable. I've been thinking maybe he's going to be out, and then he keeps playing. So at this point, yeah, I'm assuming that Rudy Gobert is. I was reading chat. I said Rudy Gobert is going to be playing in this game. So yeah, I don't think we're going to get that Naz Reid game. We're never going to find out if YouTube chat was right saying that Naz Reid was a bad play, even if he started the other day. That's a joke. He was going to be a great play. Chat was clearly wrong. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be starting tonight. The more interesting news that we're waiting on is just the Memphis starters, whether it's going to be Brandon Clark or Xavier Tillman. I assume it's going to be Brandon Clark, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and it's going to be different game to game, and it's kind of hard to know exactly which way they're going to lean. So last game, it was Brandon Clark. The game before that, it was Xavier Tillman. And what have we learned so far about the Memphis Grizzlies? We want to prioritize who's ever starting in the absence of Steven Adams, right? Because if we look at last game, what were the minutes allocations in that one? We saw Brandon Clark start and play 32 minutes. Yeah. And then it was Tillman off the bench, only played 13 and a half. Right. Whereas the game before, which there was also some weirdness about that game, it was a blowout. Clark also got into foul trouble, but 30 minutes out of Tillman and only 12 and a half minutes out of Clark. Those minutes would have been a little tighter had it not been for the blowout and the Clark foul trouble. But either way, I think we want to prioritize whoever is ultimately starting today. And it's easier to assume Clark starts because it's just easier to go down in salary than just to go up. It seems like that's how you're going to approach it.
That is how I'm going to approach it. I will say, I think that you're right, that it got really weird the game that Tillman started, but it wasn't even just that Brandon Clark was in foul trouble. It was like he had like 3 fouls in like 4 minutes. Like, it was just like, I think that Brandon Clark was possibly going to play, split minutes with Xavier Tillman. So if Tillman is named the starter, I think that's one spot on a 5-game slate. You got to get a little bit weirder than like a 9-game slate. I think that I might take some shots on Brandon Clark even if he's not starting, under the assumption that he was going to play, split minutes with Xavier Tillman in that game. But yeah, I think that most likely I'm going to be, playing more of whoever is starting. And honestly, it's also tough with Tillman, though, because he's, I think, only center eligible, whereas Brandon Clark is also power forward eligible. And we have so many great center options that even if he's starting, Tillman doesn't become like a huge priority.
Yeah. And well, I mean, to an extent, if he starts, it's going to hard to at least not get some amount of exposure to him, especially because I think people are going to be a little bit slow to weight swap. We've seen that a lot with these kind of scenarios. Like last night, Alec Burks crushed for us. Now that was super short notice. Burks, did you play last night's slate, by the way?
I did, and you guys got me on to Burks right at the last minute, and that was beautiful. And then I also played a lot of Josh Christopher.
Yeah, same with this. So there was a point last night, and I knew it wasn't going to hold, but it was kind of fun just put it out on Twitter. But there was a point last night where it showed 0 PMR left, and I was in fourth, and Eric was in first. It had no chance of holding in the $15 because there was people behind us. But either way, I put it out and I tried to convince people Eric was going to win a bunch of money, and Eric wasn't around. And Eric didn't even know either because Eric was out at dinner with his wife and I think his father-in-law. And he was like, "Am I live to win?" And the answer was no. But I was like, maybe.
And then some nobody came in and won instead.
Yeah, instead our boss, Tom Kennedy, who is the CEO of the company, comes in and ends up winning, which really is hilarious because it's like who passed Eric in the man who pays his paycheck.
Yeah.
Which
and
is
Engelman. We actually had a ton of people up there, but yeah, it is funny. Tom came in and won the slate, but we had Stokastic people across the board near the top of the leaderboard. I saw Josh up there a good amount. I think Eddie was on there. It was towards the top as well. We had Stokastic avatars up, and then also another avatar of somebody who I don't actually know who it is, but another Stokastic avatar. So it was a fun night last night. Definitely the leaderboard had a lot of Stokastic on there. I was not there. I actually, at the point when Eric was winning, I thought I had a live lineup coming up, and then I had but the only player I had in the late game was Stanley Johnson, who just crushed me.
Yeah. It was a slate where I had, because I overall, like I 3X last night, always happy with that, right? Never going to complain. But every single lineup somewhere was like, oh, this is a lineup that has 340 fantasy points, but Caruso's in it. Oh, this one is 335, but Josh Christopher's in it. Every single one was like one dud in it that just sunk the lineup.
Yeah. As Malakar said, I went from hero to zero. That's how I felt last night too. It was like early on feeling so good about my lineups. I had these cheap guys coming in late and then they all just sucked. So didn't go great.
Yeah, that is the way that it goes sometimes. And so, by the way, just reading off these injury reports once again, because Rudy Gobert questionable. Fugazi, talk about that. We think he's going to play. Desmond Bane is an important one. If he is out, we're going to see a lot of extra usage go to John Morant, Dylan Brooks. These are guys that would become more viable. And then Andrew Wiggins, the other one who's questionable for the Warriors. And, a couple games ago when Wiggins was ruled out, didn't matter to me. Didn't really impact my lineups all that much. Today it will, because it's such a small slate, only 5 games. And this is where there's a difference between, say, a 5-game slate, an 8-game slate, 10, 12 games. If you get somebody like Wiggins out, players that I otherwise wouldn't be getting to, like a Jonathan Kuminga, maybe, for instance, certainly start to come into play as, flyers in large field tournaments. Whereas a couple days ago, I didn't really feel a need to. But here's the issue with this game, Neil. 10 p.m. Eastern time start. Yeah. The start time of the other games, 7, 7:30, 8 p.m. Eastern time. There's a 2-hour gap in between games. So with that in mind, how are you going to handle Wiggins being questionable when we're almost certainly not going to know until after every other game locks whether he's in or not?
Yeah, it's really tough. Honestly, I have not given it a ton of thought how I'm going to approach this. He was out on Wednesday. I don't have any lean in terms of whether Wiggins is going to play or not. I might make a rule in Fantasy Cruncher saying at most one of Wiggins and Kuminga, and give Kuminga a little bit of a boost now, just so that I can have some lineups that have Kuminga in it. And I know you can do things like say if you have Kuminga in your lineup, require at least one other player from that game. And that's one way that you can, adjust salaries later on if Kuminga's not in there. That's certainly something you can consider doing. I sometimes am willing to take that risk, though, of, maybe Kuminga's the only guy who comes up really in value when Wiggins is out. So I don't always necessarily force in another player from that game. It's just a risk that I sometimes find the need to take. And, at that point, if Wiggins is ruled in, then I'll make a decision at that point who's going to be the best player in those lineups. But I think that's what I'm going to do is set a rule in Fantasy Cruncher. At most one of Wiggins or Kuminga. I'm going to give Kuminga a boost to get him into some lineups that don't have Wiggins in them, and then adjust later on. And most likely any lineup that I have that has Kuminga in it, if he's out, is going to be, or sorry, if he's not the starter, is not going to be a great lineup, but you never know.
Yeah, and once again, if you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to No House Advantage, the sponsor of today's show. Jordan, you know what I'm about to ask you. Can we get an overlay report? What's going on with the overlay over on No House Advantage? Because I bring this up when we talk about No House Advantage. There's no other site that you're going to find this kind of overlay. Doesn't exist on FanDuel, doesn't exist on DraftKings. I don't even know what the number is, but I'm going to guarantee you there's going to be some kind of overlay when Jordan gives me the report over there. So if you guys haven't signed up for No House Advantage yet, sign up using our link below because it is going to get you up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit and access to lots of overlay. Jordan, hit me with the numbers. What are we looking at in terms of the overlay over there? 37% full, which, correct me if I'm wrong, that's less than half, right, Jordan? Is it less than 40%?
38, yes, I believe so.
All right. That's why we keep Jordan around. He's the numbers guy of this operation. You heard it from the man himself. This contest is less than half full. Lots of overlay to be had. So basically giving away free money. If you guys haven't checked out No House Advantage, use our link to sign up, get access to all that overlay and up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. Let's hit on some of these super chats that have started to come in. First one from Smoke Show. He wants to know who our favorite pay-up option and our favorite value play at small forward is on DraftKings.
That's small forward. Okay. Oh,
so
it's Ant. It's Ant for me.
Yeah. So also, I'm not exactly. I assume that both of the questions he wants us to answer for small forward. Let's give him a little bit of extra bang for his buck because he says, "Who's our favorite pay up option and favorite value play at small forward?" I don't know if he just means favorite value play specific and pay up option as small forward. So let's do our favorite small forward pay up option, then just in general, favorite pay up option on the slate as well. So we make sure anything that he could potentially be asking us, we've got it covered here. My overall favorite pay up option on the slate. Are we considering Garland a pay up option? I'll let you be the arbiter of this.
What's his price tag? Garland
It is DraftKings 8,300.
Yeah, it's a pay up option.
Okay, so Garland, we're going to call him my favorite pay-up option. Small forward, Neil's only going to be giving us Minnesota Timberwolves answers for everything
right.
today.
Be ready
this
for
is the first time
Timberwolves.
Neil's done a show. Do you have you've got your Timberwolves hat on, if I'm not mistaken?
Got my hat on, got my mug. I went with a small Timberwolves Stein today. Just one beer tonight.
When I used to freelance for DraftKings, they had a rule. You're not allowed to have any memorabilia of any particular team around you because or else it might indicate you're biased in some way. Not around here. Now where I'm running the ship in these parts, you wear whatever you want. Any apparel you want, we put it on here. Mike Lawrence, I've never seen him without multiple sorts of Philadelphia gear.
Sometimes Bills. He has some Bills outfits as well, but yeah, a lot of Philly stuff.
But also part of it is if we told him he wasn't allowed to wear Philadelphia stuff anymore, he'd just start showing up to work naked. Nobody wants to see that.
Right,
Nobody wants to see that at all. Just him.
Not even his wife.
No, absolutely not. It would just be him and weird pixelated internet that's running really slow. And so it would kind of be like it's some, like Japanese pornography where he's kind of pixelated out, but it would still be Mike there. So we want to make sure he's wearing clothes when he's on the show. But anyway, small forward, are you going to say Edwards is your favorite pay up option?
Yeah, I mean, Edwards is my biased opinion. I actually really do like Scotty Barnes as well, though. Coming in just a really low on. We have Scotty Barnes coming in at 7% projected ownership. We've got some positive leverage there. We have him optimal 10.6% of the time. I honestly, if I'm looking at it objectively, I think Scotty Barnes is actually the better answer here. Just the price is a little bit lower than Ant. We've got some positive leverage there. So I like Scotty Barnes quite a bit. And of course, if you really want to pay up, then I do love Ant as well.
Yeah, and he's the only pay up option, right? So that's what's kind of like, we're getting asked who's our favorite pay. That was why I wasn't sure if the question meant for it in totality on the slate or just small forward, because Edwards is the only pay up option small forward on DK. He's 9,000, and then the next guy is Scotty Barnes at 7,700. Don't really like getting to Scotty Barnes. We've got Paulo Banchero at 7K. I don't really love him either, so it's kind of Edwards by default, and I'm right around even with the field right now. He's in 20% of my lineups. He's expected for 18% ownership. So no real differentiation there. But who is your favorite value play at small forward?
I mean, do we consider Dylan Brooks a value play at 4,600? I think he's in play regardless of Desmond Bane's status. But if Desmond Bane is out, then Dylan Brooks is going to look incredible at 4,600. Yeah. Do we count Brooks?
Yeah, you could count him. I mean, especially because I mean, I agree with you. If we end up seeing Desmond Bane get ruled out, and let's say it ends up happening after lock or even close to lock, I don't think the field is going to react in the way they should. The game starts in an hour from now. It's not that much time to react to that kind of news. It's just for us because, we're on top of it. Chat, we've got sharp guys in there, and Brandon Katz, they're always on top of it. We got a good mix in there. So it's people that are like us around here. We're going to be swapping to Dylan Brooks and other Grizzlies players if Desmond Bane is ruled out. I don't know the field is going to. So I do think that he makes sense. But the one thing we should add as a caveat, it's only if Desmond Bane is out for myself. Is that for you as well?
No, I would still have some interest in not a ton. Like he's not, just because it's a 5-game slate. I think that he would still be in play. I don't know that he would necessarily still be my favorite. As somebody in chat pointed out, oh no, never mind. Kuminga is only power forward eligible. That's new, wasn't he? Always small forward last year. All right, so that's not an option.
Let me look. I'm trying to think. Does it save in Fantasy Cruncher the positions? No. Yeah, I wasn't sure, but yeah, he's only power forward for tonight on DK. Over on FanDuel, though, Kuminga's only small forward. So depending what site you're looking at, Kuminga, the good old cum bucket, small forward only on FanDuel, power forward over on DK. So Kuminga, would not fit for this answer. If we're talking cash games, I think Pat Connaughton is somebody to consider pretty strongly here. And he's a small forward who, relative to his price point, I think that there's a good amount of upside there. I have him projected for mid-20s fantasy points, and he's expected to be somewhat popular right around 20%. I'm a little bit overweight to him at 4,100. The other one, too, Karis LeVert's going to be super popular, but for good reason at small forward. No Donovan Mitchell tonight, no Kevin Love. We saw Karis LeVert move into the starting lineup last game. It wasn't necessarily the greatest result for him last night, but keep in mind there was a blowout. So it's 25 fantasy points in 32 minutes. He would have been up around 30 plus fantasy points had he actually gotten to play the entire game. So Karis LeVert, Pat Connaughton, those are the guys for me. Any pushback from you on that?
Yeah, no pushback for those guys. I'll throw in Aaron Wiggins as well if he is starting at 3,100. I think Aaron Wiggins would certainly be in play if he ends up starting for Lou Dort.
Yeah, that's true. We don't know what that starting lineup is going to be at. I will read off who I think is going to be starting for OKC. Although with that said, guessing the starting lineup for OKC, kind of a fool's errand for multiple reasons. Number one, impossible to guess. Number two, even if you're right, they change their starters a lot from the first half to the second half. You'll see guys start in the first half of the game and then come off the bench in the second half, never even check into the game. But at least as of right now, I'm expecting the starting lineup to be Josh Giddey, SGA. Those are the easy ones. And then I'm expecting Kenrich Williams, Jalen Williams, and Jalen Williams. One is Jalen and Jaylin. Very annoying. The NBA should outlaw this. Can't have two players with the same name on the same team. But the Oklahoma City Thunder, who also run the worst rotations in the league, have decided that is what they're going to do.
Yeah.
The next super chat we have is from Jorge, our guy Jorge Giacomi, who also checked out the Sorare show that Neil and I did together earlier. It was the first time Neil and I did the solo Sorare show, as we're trying to figure that out. So Jorge, thank you for your support and watching all the content that Neil and I have been doing today. Who would be your value priorities and your high price priorities if you have to? Okay, so in terms of the high price priorities for me, it is Giannis and Darius Garland. Same for you, or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, Giannis certainly up there. Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on what you mean. Do you mean like the chalk, like the guys who are going to be in a lot of our lineups, guys that I want to be like over the field on, like Steph Curry at 2.6% against Toronto? That's pretty juicy for me. So I think that I'm going to be above the field on Steph Curry. Ja will probably be close to the field on at 10,000. He's coming in at 17% ownership. I think I'll be at or above that. Obviously, I love Ant. Always love playing Ant. I will save some pieces from that Toronto Golden State game. I also like Siakam a little bit just because he's coming in so loaned. It is tough because Siakam is center only, so that's not quite. I can't really call him a priority given that he's only center eligible. But yeah, certainly Garland is currently coming in as my highest owned player overall, I believe. And then yeah, certainly Giannis is going to be up there. But I do like mixing in some Steph Curry just because he's coming in so low owned. You can play Steph in a lineup where you have a lot of chalk, and we've got some pretty good chalk here.
Yeah, I think that definitely you can make a case for that as well. The two, though, if we're just talking about who I have the most exposure to overall, it is going to be Darius Garland and Giannis Antetokounmpo. As for our our high priority value option, so which cheap players on DraftKings are you prioritizing getting into lineups? And cheap. He said value. It's always kind of weird to me because value could be a lot of things. Somebody could be 10,000. It could be value. I know what people mean though. The heart of the question is which cheap players do you like? Pat Connaughton's somebody I'm overweight to, but it's not like there are players who are the flat min that I'm going crazy out of my way to get to. Is it the same for you? Because the value plays I'm really getting to, it's like Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Karis LeVert. It's more guys who I think are like $1,000 to $1,500 mispriced in the mid range, as opposed to just punt plays that I'm going out of my way for.
Yeah, it's really nobody who's I'm really confident. I mean, I see Aaron Nesmith looks pretty good. He's only 3,400. We've got him in the optimal 26% of the time. He's coming in at 31% ownership. So to call him a priority might be a little bit of an overstatement, but certainly somebody who's going to make it into a number of my lineups. He looks, he projects well for a $3,400 player. But beyond that, yeah, Pat Connaughton looks pretty good. Precious will make it into some lineups, but again, he's tough because he's center only. Like a lot of these guys are like, he looks pretty good, but he's center only. And they're just so you can only play 2 centers on DraftKings, and we've got some really juicy center options. Brooks, again, will be a priority if Desmond Bane is out. Xavier Tillman, if he's starting, will certainly be a I don't know if I call him a priority, but somebody that I'm going to be playing in some lineups. I played some Isaac Okoro last night. That did not go well, but I'm going to go back there again tonight. He's 3,700. We have some positive leverage on Okoro. He can have some big games from time to time. Project for 7% ownership on a 5-game slate. I think that's reasonable, coming in at 9% optimal. So I do like some Okoro. But yeah, we're gonna have to see some of these starting lineups. Honestly, I think that's the biggest thing we're waiting on. Obviously the Bane injury situation, but we are waiting on some starting lineups that we're not all that confident in.
Yeah, and which starting lineup do you think could potentially, taking injuries out of it, is there any one particular starting lineup you think could have the most sway on your lineups?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Memphis starting lineup is going to be pretty big, depending on whether it's Clark or Tillman. The OKC starting lineup, if we do get something, if we get Isaiah Joe in the starting lineup, that would be kind of interesting for me. Yeah, I'd say those are the two that I'm most interested in at this point. Obviously, yeah, not counting injury situation. Like if Gobert is out, then obviously Naz Reid becomes a priority. But just aside from injury stuff, I think those are the two that are kind of relevant here. Do you have any others that you'd throw in there?
I don't even know I care that much about the OKC lineup. It should matter, except I'm just so tired of trying to predict their minutes. Like even if somebody starts, I don't even know what to do with that information for the most part, because it's going to be somebody who starts, subs out at the first whistle, and then doesn't play again until the third quarter. It's just total mess and a nonsense. So I don't even know that's going to impact me that much. But yeah, the cheating a little bit, but Memphis, whether Desmond Bane is in or out, is going to have a lot of impact on my lineups. But that's going to be the case for a lot of people. And by the way, related to Rudy Gobert, we got a question from Cream in Discord chat, Cream of Eric Clapton fame. Do you have any take on if Gobert is playing? Yeah, I think Gobert plays. And then if he does not, does that mean you get to more of Naz Reid over Allen or Mobley? I actually do like this question, just from a standpoint of, even though I'm really certain that Rudy Gobert is going to play, he is still questionable in the injury report. And it is worth talking about what would end up happening with Naz Reid if he doesn't play. And Naz Reid would become my highest rostered player. Naz Reid would end up in all of my lineups. So Naz Reid is $4,300 on DraftKings with power forward and center eligibility. FanDuel, he's only center eligible, but $5,300. And the $5,300 price tag, pretty easy to get to. So I'm going to pull up Naz Reid's numbers as a starter this year. And I think it'll highlight how much of a priority Naz Reid would be if Rudy Gobert is out. We have seen 7 starts from Naz Reid. I know there's been foul trouble in some of them. So he's only averaging 26 minutes per start because of some of the inconsistencies with the playing time and the fouls. But in those 26 minutes, he's averaging 30.5 fantasy points per game. So at that $4,300 salary, multi-position eligibility on DraftKings, we're jamming him. On FanDuel, still, even where you can only play one center, if we're going to be projecting Reid for north of 30 fantasy points, it'd be really difficult to avoid him at $5,300. So yeah, if Gobert is out, Naz Reid's a higher priority for me than Jared Allen or Evan Mobley. Would it be the same for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you add in just those are just the base rates. Like he's going to project extremely well, but on top of that, he's going to be a little bit lower owned because we don't have the news ahead of lock. So yeah, definitely Naz Reid would be a huge priority for me if Rudy Gobert is ruled out.
And by the way, the non-update update Donovan Mitchell remains doubtful for tonight. The next super chat we got is from Ace of Spade. And oh boy, we're going to put your loyalty to the text here, Neil Orfield, because Ace of Spade wants to know SGA or Anthony Edwards for DK tiers.
I mean, it's obviously Anthony Edwards here, right?
Let me see what my answer is, because I'm actually, you know what? The answer for me actually is SGA. So one thing that kind of, it's funny, in classic contests, I get more exposure to Anthony Edwards. The reason in tiers it becomes SGA is we just don't have to worry about salary. And SGA is $900 more expensive, and he's only point guard eligible in classic contests. That makes him harder to get to than Anthony Edwards, who's shooting guard, small forward, and is only 9K. But in tiers where it's just 1v1, yeah, then I lean towards SGA. I'm sorry, Neil.
No, I mean, SGA does project a little bit better, so it kind of makes sense. The only question then is, like, you do have to think about ownership a bit, right? So I would assume that SGA, because he is the more expensive player, is going to be higher owned. I don't think you can go, I don't think there's really a clear right or wrong. I think that SGA projects a little bit better. He's going to be a little bit higher owned. Ant is projects like one fantasy point worse. So it's not like there's a huge gap there.
Yeah.
But my guess is that Ant will come in a little bit lower owned as well. So yeah, I mean, it's reasonable, I guess, to say SGA is the right answer there.
I was so happy when I saw that super chat because I was like, oh my, Neil's going to have to pick against Anthony Edwards in a Minnesota.
I don't have to. You can't make
his Minnesota Timberwolves hat. He's gonna have to pick against him. So that made me happy there. But it's fairly close. I lean towards SGA, Ace of Spade. Hippopotamus. I'm hungry, and the only food I want to nom on is a Neil's nom buddy. I mean, Neil's nobody. Oh, I forgot. Remember, I'm happy you brought this back up. Good thing I have a good memory too. A lot of other people around here who, like Eric, who's an idiot, like some of them, they host shows and they'd be like, what is he talking about? I remember from last week, Hippopotamus, who is also Eric Traub in our Discord chat. He is going to want to know your favorite tournament play on the slate. So I think it's 5 games. So let's do it a little bit different from what we did last week. Neil, you do it for DraftKings. I'll do it for FanDuel. And I'm going to refresh the ownership. So we're making sure we're looking at the most recent one. A starting line for the Pacers just came in, by the way. McConnell, Hield, Duarte, Neesmith, and Turner. Who is your favorite tournament play on DraftKings for under 15% ownership? And I'll do it for FanDuel for sub 15% ownership.
Okay, sub. Interesting. I thought it was 10% usually for Eric Traub. Maybe that's just a showdown thing.
So the reason I said that we're going to change it up for this week is because we had a bunch more games last Friday. I think it was a 8 or a 9 game slate, if I remember correctly. Sure. So I'll expand the parameters a little bit for a 5 game slate.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Andrew Wiggins is actually going to look pretty good if he's in. Currently, looks like he's coming in really low owned. I talked about I do have some interest in Steph, just as a really low owned pay up option. Nobody's going to want to go to Steph tonight, and on a 5 game slate, I mean, would it really shock anybody if Steph puts up 70 and completely breaks the slate? It wouldn't shock me against this Toronto team. So I kind of do like Steph. The field is going to be there as well. The field is not going to be there. But yeah, I might honestly go with Steph just because he is coming in so low owned. I'm looking through the options though.
So I have my answer. You don't have to submit yours officially right now. I've got my official one. Who else would I answer but Jimmy Butler? And I know we're in this big feud. I know him and I we've been going back and forth for years. He's still ducking me in a fight. I updated my Twitter profile, by the way. My Twitter, if anybody goes to my Twitter profile, it now says undefeated in fights with Jimmy Butler right there in the bio. Once it's in the bio, it's just a fact. It's true. Never lost a fight to Jimmy Butler. In fact, I think a lot of people could argue I've won my only fight against Jimmy Butler because he refused to show up to the ring, which kind of makes me the winner by default. But for today, he's $8,600 on FanDuel, priced down a little bit. He's got a good matchup against the Magic, and nobody's playing him. He's 14% owned on FanDuel. For a 5 game slate, Jimmy Butler, we know the kind of upside he has. I like my guy Jimmy Buckets quite a bit for today. So now, of course, he's going to get hurt in the second quarter because I deserve it.
Yeah, no, I think Jimmy's certainly a fine play. I don't mind that call at all. Yeah, honestly, nobody else is jumping out at me under 15% as of now, it is harder in NBA to answer these questions because it's going to depend so much on injury news. Like we're going to get news that's going to change the whole composition of the slate. So that might affect things. But as of right now, one player that is going to be low owned either way, who I think I'm going to like a lot better than the field does, is Steph Curry, coming in at 2.6% projected ownership. I mean, we've got him 5.3% chance of being optimal. And I think that, he's even got a chance of not just being optimal, but being like completely necessary to be towards the top of the leaderboard. Like you don't have that many players that have the upside that Steph Curry has. So I do like he's 10,400. Like he's really expensive. That's why the field's not getting there that much. But I really do like Steph Curry at that kind of ownership, just because Steph can get hot and put up 50 real fantasy points and just 50 real life basketball points and just have a 70-point game at no ownership. So I think I'll go with Steph there. I also got somebody was asking about.
Sorry, one second. Desmond Bane is out tonight, and
that's beautiful.
So we'll go react to that right now. And by the way, I had to. This is what makes this show so hard to plan out. Sometimes I had a segment I wanted to go to next. We were going to talk about the lineup generator. Now we've got a new offer for the lineup generator. I was going to build some lineups with it, but now we're not going to have all the data updated right now for Desmond Bane because he just got ruled out. So we're going to talk through the Desmond Bane situation. But I also want to tell you guys the NBA lineup generator. We've got it as a separate package now. So I know a lot of you people who are watching the show, maybe you're not somebody who needs a fantasy cruncher. You're not somebody who's playing 150 lineups. Maybe you're somebody who just plays a couple lineups a night. And I think the NBA lineup generator package we have now, it is the perfect way for you guys to get in the door with all the different tools we have over at Stokastic.com. And if you sign up for the lineup generator right now, it is going to be 50% off your first week when you sign up using the link we have below. And if you guys have tried out the lineup generator, it's awesome. This is the easiest way to build out 20 lineups, and you upload them right to DraftKings, right to FanDuel. And they're lineups that in our simulations are plus EV. So if you guys are somebody who's often short on time leading up to lock and just want some help building those lineups, check out our lineup generator, sign up using the link. You're going to get 50% off your first week. That's less than $5. And I think it's going to make you some money, and then it'll just pay for itself after that. So take advantage of the offer. Click on the link below to sign up if you guys haven't checked it out yet. Now let's talk about Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane, and by the way, if we saw Eric here, he'd be going right into like, no one cares who I was until I put on the mask. Because like you can't even bring up the name. Eric's like, I do that impression because that's just. By the way, also Eric, day off today, showed up anyway because Lofty didn't show up to work yesterday. Jordan had the day off. He shows up because Mike was having tech issues. So good job by Eric stepping up today. And Jordan, still appreciate you for yesterday. But Desmond Bane is not going to be playing today. How is this going to impact our lineups now? We kind of hinted at it before, but now it's a reality.
Yeah, Dylan Brooks is going to become a priority here. He's probably going to be starting, and he's too cheap for his role with Desmond Bane out. I imagine Dylan Brooks is going to be somebody who's going to make it into a majority of my lineups potentially. Gonna have to wait on. I don't think we have the projection updated yet on Brooks, but it's going to see a jump, and he's going to be somebody that I'm really interested in. Are you going to anybody else is jumping out to you off the top of your head who's going to be a priority with Bane out?
Yeah, so one thing I'm doing right now is I'm just pulling off some of the on-off court numbers. We're going to look at Memphis, and I want to see who is it that's really benefited this year when both Desmond Bane and Steven Adams are out. Because keep in mind, there is no Steven Adams either, and that's going to have an impact on some of these rebounding numbers that we're seeing from this team. So let's see what happens. We take Desmond Bane off the court. We take Steven Adams off, and who really pops? John Morant. John Morant this year. Oh, okay. So John Morant's going to become more of a priority as a pay-up option. Morant this year, 37% usage rate with neither Adams nor Bane on the court, 55 fantasy points per 36 minutes. So Morant, who was not all that popular before, he's somebody we want to get more of. Another one, Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr., 27% usage rate, 52 fantasy points per 36 minutes for him with Bane and Adams off the court. Now, the risk here obviously is the foul situation. How quickly is this guy going to put his hands on other people and have to get removed from the game? Hopefully not too much because he's going to become more of a priority. But these are the three Memphis players that I'm going to be getting the most of. And depending to change based on the starting lineup. But Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Brandon Clark. Dylan Brooks has not really seen a massive boost this year with Desmond Bane off the court. It helps him a little bit, but still, he only scores 31 fantasy points per 36 minutes. I think what we could feel better about is that he could play a couple extra minutes without Desmond Bane out there. But Brooks, maybe not as much of a priority as I thought he was going to. Somebody that I wasn't playing that I'm going to, but not like a crazy high crazy high priority. I assume I'm probably going to be somewhere close to the field with Dylan Brooks.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on where the field comes in. I do have a lot of interest in Dylan Brooks. Yeah, that's interesting that he doesn't get as big of a boost as we were anticipating, but he's still somebody that is going to be a high volatility situation. And my guess is the field isn't going to get there a ton, but I guess we'll have to wait and see how that breaks out. I'm glad to see JJJ, the obviously the fouling is an issue, but it's been less so this year. And I'm always willing to go to Jaren Jackson Jr. just because he is such a high volatility player. And if he's in a situation where he's putting up over 50 fantasy points without Bane in there, he's certainly going to have, I'd expect more usage with no Bane in there. Yeah, I'm going to have interest in Jaren Jackson Jr. for sure at 6,600. He's going to become a bit of a priority for me as well.
Even on FanDuel where he's more expensive. So we've got Jaren Jackson Jr. because I know there's going to be some people who say like, okay, that's his DraftKings price. He's $7,800 on FanDuel. Just because of the defensive stat upside for Jaren Jackson Jr., I'm still going to be looking at Triple J on FanDuel, even at the 7,800. Not as appealing as the DK price point. Still playable, though. So Jaren Jackson Jr., 7,800. Get to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm updating my lineups right now. I'll let you guys know what ends up happening. I have Dylan Brooks, it looks like, for mid to high 20s fantasy points. So 4,600, that's going to make him a decent looking value play. But I think earlier in the day, I presumed I was going to end up with him with like north of 30 fantasy points if we didn't have Bane in. That looks like it's not going to be the case. Okay. And then ownership, we'll refresh that to see if that's come in. And I'll check Discord to see if we've gotten any questions about that. And we've got some super chats that we still have to answer as well. And let's see, scrolling back because we kind of got off track a little bit. Here we go. Corey Balmer, Clark if starting, or Levert. I prefer, so if salary isn't an issue, Levert points per dollar, I prefer Brandon Clark. Do you have a lean there, Neil?
Not a strong one. Yeah, it's probably Levert. Yeah, salary not been an issue. What is there, a $300 difference there? It's pretty tight.
Clark on DraftKings is 4,900 and Levert is 5,200. I have Levert for half a fantasy point more now after updating, but because of positionality in the salary, I'm going to be getting to Levert a little bit more. But I'm going to be getting to Clark a little bit more. But if salary is no issue, then Karis Levert.
Yeah, same page, I think.
The next question we have here is from Ryan Nelson. Locked in the Wolves +3, Memphis on a West Coast trip. Well, I'll tell you what, Ryan, that bet's looking a little bit sharper now that Desmond Bane's out. I think you got some good value on your hands.
Yeah, that helps.
I like it. Neil also has to feel pretty good about him being on the Wolves side of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. That definitely helps having Desmond Bane not in that game. He definitely helped them beat us in the playoffs last year.
John Bryant wants to know, who is our favorite guard for $6,700 or under on DK?
I mean, it's got to be D'Angelo Russell, right? I'm joking. Well, I'll see if I'm joking.
I mean, it could be. I'm looking at all the salaries now. I don't know it off the top of my head. Is it actually? I mean, it'd be funny if that is who it is.
It would be funny because I was making a joke, but let's see. TJ McConnell projects better than D'Angelo Russell, just slightly. He's nearly 1.5 more than D'Angelo Russell. So probably TJ McConnell. We do have him projected for 37% ownership to D'Lo's 23%, but from a projection standpoint, it would be TJ McConnell.
It is definitely TJ McConnell for me now that I'm looking at it. So I just was trying to figure out like what the price points were and everything. It's TJ McConnell by a pretty wide margin for me. That's the guy to go to. A little bit of concern about the matchup for sure, but McConnell's in general played a much bigger role as of late. He's been a really good fantasy option. He just hasn't really been priced appropriately for it at this point. I don't know what DraftKings is waiting for, but they've not priced up TJ McConnell. Corey Shea, favorite DK values, $3,600 and under.
3,600. All right, let's see.
Aaron Neesmith and Zaire Williams now for me with Desmond Bane out.
Let me look. Yeah, Neesmith projects really well. Potentially Tillman. If he is starting, he's going to look really good. You say 3,600?
3,600 and under. The two for me, it's Neesmith, Zaire Williams.
Okay. Yeah. And it depends on the starting lineup, but could be Tillman.
The next question we have is from James Magruder. And he said that he is late to the show. Who are the top plays at each position for DK? So I'll rattle through this. I just did a run of lineups, and I can tell you who I ended up getting the most of. So top two is TJ McConnell and Darius Garland, although a shout out to John Morant, who is not all that far behind. Shooting guard, Karis LeVert and Dylan Brooks ended up coming up next for me at shooting guard. Small forward, also Karis LeVert. Throw Pat Connaughton into the mix. Power forward, Brandon Clark and Evan Mobley. Center, Jared Allen as well. And then Clark and Mobley also have center eligibility. I don't know how far along you are building lineups, but is there anything else, Neil, who is super important to your builds that I didn't mention there that you would like to shout out?
No, I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to become a little bit of a priority for me. Just be not really from just a raw projection standpoint, but from a range of outcome standpoint. I think that he's going a little bit under owned. But yeah, I think you covered the guys who project the best there.
The next super chat we have here is from the consigliere. Greg got me to second in the free Yahoo. Who are the top 3 plays over on Yahoo? So let me go check out Yahoo and some of the pricing there. So one thing that stands out immediately, Karis LeVert's almost min price on Yahoo. He is $15. Yeah, go play a $15 Karis LeVert. Min price there is $10. I mean, this is the equivalent of getting him at what, 4,200 or something like that on DraftKings. So go play Karis LeVert. I think he's somebody you really want to consider. Dylan Brooks is also close to min price over on Yahoo. He's $16. So Karis LeVert, Dylan Brooks, I call those 2 priorities. And then Darius Garland, only $36. He hasn't been priced up. And then Brandon Clark will add into as well. So I'll give you 4. Karis LeVert, Dylan Brooks, Darius Garland, Brandon Clark. All guys who are benefiting from injuries in some way. Donovan Mitchell and Kevin Love out. That's going to make the Cavs guys look better. And then for the Grizzlies, no Steven Adams, no Desmond Bane, making those guys look better. Good luck, the consigliere. I hope you win again today. The next one, Corey Shea, Duarte or Dylan Brooks. Duarte has been playing well lately. I have to lean Dylan Brooks over Duarte. I don't like Dylan Brooks. I made that very clear over the last couple of years. This is not a guy I enjoy. But with that said, he's fairly cheap today and is also somebody who takes a lot of shots. Because I've said this before. You know who Dylan Brooks thinks the best player on the Memphis Grizzlies is?
Yeah, it's Dylan Brooks.
According to Dylan Brooks, it's Dylan Brooks. He's like John Morant, MVP candidate. No. All-star starter or all-star? Don't think so. I'm better than that guy. Then you go Jaren Jackson Jr., front runner when defensive player there. Dylan Brooks said, no. I'm the better defensive player than this guy. Dylan Brooks thinks he's the best of Jaren Jackson's defensive game and the best of John Morant's offensive game molded together into one. Is he? Absolutely not. But he sure as hell shoots like it. And that helps his fantasy output a little bit. So like I said before, I have him projected for right around mid to high 20s fantasy points. So it's not like a crazy type value play, but still relative to Duarte, he's a better fantasy option than Duarte, who's been fairly shitty for fantasy purposes this year.
Yep, absolutely. And I have him in 57% of my lineups currently. I don't know if I'm going to end that. I'm going to run 1 or 2 more crunches before lock here, but yeah, he is projecting well enough point per dollar that even without adjusting his projection, I'm getting a ton of Dylan Brooks.
And super chats, we are all caught up on those. I know we got questions in Discord to answer as well. If you guys haven't done it, the easiest way to help support our show and keep it free on the internet is just like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate it. It doesn't cost you any money. All it costs you is about 3 seconds of your time, and it's time they're going to get back. It's only 3 seconds, right? I know time is fleeting, but 3 seconds, you guys could. By the way, Donovan Mitchell officially ruled out. We've got Heflub. Shout out to Seth's wife's boyfriend. Always shout out. Best play for $4,200 and under on DK. Let's see, 4,200 and under. Who is in that price range? Oh, Pat Connaughton for me.
Yeah, let's see.
There aren't that many guys right around $4,200 for today that I really get exposure to.
Precious Achua. Achiuwa. I've never said the name out loud. He is 4,200, projects pretty well, over 25 fantasy points. He looks pretty good, but he is center only. So you're probably right. It's probably not. It's probably Connaughton.
Yeah. just the way it goes. I can't even really make a case for another player there. Zaire Williams, Talltail. Zaire Williams worth a shot to get different for a DK GPP. Yeah, Talltail, if you really need a punt, like a close to min salary guy on DK, I think you could do worse than Zaire Williams. I think that Zaire Williams, right around, what is he, $3,200 for DraftKings? There's nobody at that price point I prefer to him. You don't have to go out of your way to play him, but if that's the salary you got left, that's the guy that I'm recommending you go out and play. The next question is from the Maharashi. Wants to know, are 4 Cavs too many for a DK GPP? Not for me, but Neil, do you have any kind of limits on the amount of players that you're allowing from one team tonight?
I am limiting myself to 3 players from any team. I think that this is kind of borderline for me. A 5-game slate, I would consider going to 4, and you could go there. I think that we have enough value from other teams that I'm still going to keep it at 3. But yeah, I don't think 4 is necessarily wrong. It's just I'm doing 3. It's my usual standard that I sometimes deviate from. But here, I think we've got enough value that I'm willing to just leave it at 3.
It's funny because I don't know if he's watching right now, but I know he watches from time to time. Our guy, Peter Viles, a Humbro. And I was messaging with him last night because Eric and I had some live lineups, and we were just talking about the different times we would go to 4 players or go to 3 players on any given slate. And for me, his stance was, and just by in general, he doesn't like to play lineups that have more than 3 players from one team. The reason I was okay with it last night, I am on this slate as well. If I limit myself to a 3-player max per team, it drastically changes what my best projected lineup show up as. Yeah. And for me, it's still going to be a thing of like, all right, how much do I want to optimize my lineups projection wise versus correlation wise? Because I know ideally 4 or 5 players from the same team isn't always optimal. In fact, it usually isn't. But on a 5-game slate where I project a lot of these players, Karis LeVert, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, to all be some of the top players on the slate, I'm okay with having lineups here and there that have all of them, just because if I don't allow that, it really brings down the overall projections of some of my lineups. It's only a 5-game slate. We have a good amount of options now at the absence of Desmond Bane, but it's not so many players that I want to really inhibit myself in that kind of way. I understand taking the other side of it, but once again, for me, I'm cool with 4 today.
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. As I said, I don't think that 4 is wrong. I just I am still setting it at 3. I think that we've got enough value here that I think 3 is reasonable. But yeah, I'm with you.
Darren Anderson said that we missed his super chat. What was his super chat? I know Jordan sent me a bunch of them here, so here it is. Okay, my bad. My apologies, Darren. Thoughts on a sloppy blowout Bol double tonight? The Orlando minutes are so difficult to project right now. I don't even know that Bol is a garbage time player. They have so many rotation guys now. This is probably the deepest bad team I've ever seen in the NBA. They have so many guys to go to. They could legitimately run like a 12-man rotation, and you can't even say it's wrong because the amount of players they have to go to. I'll just read off the guys who I think are quality NBA players from this team. But anyway, long story short is I don't even think that Bol is a guarantee to play in garbage time, so I would avoid it. But Boncaro, Wagner, Carter Jr., Fultz, Cole Anthony, Bol, Gary Harris, Jalen Suggs, Mo Wagner, Terrence Ross, Jonathan Isaac, Mo Bamba. I know that Jonathan Isaac is resting tonight, but still, that's 12 guys that I think are legitimate rotation players in the NBA. And I don't really, it's the team that I have the least interest in overall tonight.
Which team is that? I was responding.
The Orlando Magic.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of the Magic tonight.
Yeah, no Bol for me. And by the way, sorry for the delayed answer there, Darren. It just kind of got lost in the mix. That's my bad. Douglas Bowman, a super chat. Dylan Brooks and Hero or Connaughton with one of Hero, Giddey, or Van Vliet. A single entry on DK. And let's see. Yeah, and then he also says 150 entries, not even possible to lose, right? Exactly. 150 lineups. You win every time, guaranteed. In fact, you come in first every time, guaranteed.
Every time. Yeah. Easy peasy. I posted a screenshot of a joking screenshot on Twitter.
Quick, Dylan Brooks and Hero, just because the slate's about to lock.
Oh, yeah. Good call. I got a lot of comments. People thinking that it was a screenshot of me winning. I don't know what's going on, but I got a lot of people saying, if you play that many lineups, it's cheating. You're going to win no matter what. It's always funny.
You know what you should do? Post the next time you bing, particularly on Showdown, where people seem to get really triggered. Just be like, I'm happy one of my 450 lineups hit. Like, just pretend you played way more lineups than 150.
Well, that's what Fantasy Guru Drew did though. He said, yes, I played 500 lineups, and somebody in my comments actually seemed to believe that was true and was citing that as, see, people are playing 500 lineups. So yeah, definitely easy to trigger people.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do the next time. The next time I win GPP where I have 150 lineups, I'll be like, yeah, I played 600 tonight, 700, whatever it is, because it's not nobody's gonna sit there and count all the lineups in the thing.
No, they never do.
Yeah, just make it up, trigger people. They'll get upset. For whatever reason, they're skeptical of everything. But if you just tell them you play 600 lineups, they're like, yeah, he did.
Yeah, I believe that
everything.
For sure.
Everything else they think is fake, right? They think that NFL players They think NFL players died on the field and were killed by paramedics. But this is one that they'll just take your word for it when you blatantly lie. Let's see. Do we have any more questions in Discord to answer? By the way, we are at lock, but Neil and I aren't going anywhere. It's Friday night, but Neil and I are going to stick around here and party for the next 30 minutes. We're going to be talking a little bit about some of the projections we have over at Stokastic.com. We're going to be reacting to any kind of late news. And of course, we're going to be tilting the early games because everybody knows that every slate is settled in the first 3 minutes. Has there ever been a time that you've played an NBA slate that wasn't immediately won or lost in the first 3 minutes of a game?
No, it's always over 3 minutes in. Everybody knows that.
Let's see. Exactly. Donovan Mitchell is officially out. Teely wanted to know our favorite players position by position. We actually did do that. Somebody left a super chat and I went through the positions and just gave out who my most rostered players were. But I mean, we could do it again right now because why not? Now that we have everything official, it didn't change for me because the last time I read it out was my final update there. But Neil, let's go back and forth. Or actually, I could do it for FanDuel while you do it for DraftKings.
Yeah, I did not play on FanDuel tonight. So
who are your most rostered point guards on DraftKings?
So currently it is Darius Garland, TJ McConnell, and Ja Morant. Steph Curry fourth, but there is a gap between Ja and Steph Curry. Are you frozen? Is Greg frozen? I don't know that I've ever been on a stream where Greg was frozen before. I will just keep going then. It appears that Greg is frozen, unless it's me that's frozen. I've got Garland, McConnell. Okay, yep. So I've got Darius Garland, TJ McConnell, and Ja Morant at point guard, followed by Steph Curry. I've got 14% Steph Curry. So love Steph Curry. I'm way over the field. 14% still not a crazy number. At shooting guard, I have Karis LeVert. I currently have 65% Karis LeVert. Then I've got 65% Dylan Brooks, also followed by Buddy Hield, who I do have locked in 27% Buddy Hield. And then I have 24% Ant. Love that. Small forward, I've got, again, it's LeVert, Brooks at the top. Aaron Nesmith, I actually cut back closer to lock. I was getting like 70-80%, and I wanted to save some flexibility, so I cut back to 29% Aaron Nesmith. Still a reasonable amount there, but cut back a little bit there. Power forward, a lot of Evan Mobley. I currently have 55%, 47% Brandon Clark, and then Nesmith, followed by Jaren Jackson Jr. at 28% currently. And then at center, I currently have 94% Rudy Gobert. I kind of just left that in there, figuring I'm going to adjust after the fact. We're going to get some news. Even if Rudy Gobert is in, I don't really want 94% Rudy Gobert.
I don't know.
He is in. Okay, so, now I can hear you. I can hear you now.
So, by the way, you were talking. You're saying, "Oh, Greg is frozen. We can't see him. We can't hear him." And I was just here like, here's what it was the equivalent of me too. You do the game when you're kids, you're bowling another kid and you just pretend he's invisible and you can't hear anything. So you guys are like, we can't hear you. We can't see you. And then you said to Jordan, is he frozen or am I frozen? I go, I'm not frozen. It must be you. I could see and hear everything. And then you just kept going and you're like, no, we can't hear. I'm like, yeah, you can. I'm right here. And then I wasn't. So I left, I came back and it worked. I don't know. Zoom is weird sometimes.
I can hear me. Yeah. Weird.
Yeah. I was able to hear you too. I was posting in the YouTube chat as well.
Oh, funny. I just kept reading off stuff. I was like, well, I guess I was already on a path here, so I can buy some time just going through reading all my stuff. Yeah, so we've got Rudy Gobert. I currently have 94% Rudy Gobert. I am not planning to stick with 94% Rudy Gobert. I didn't adjust it because I think that he's a fine play, and I didn't really. There's nobody that I wanted to jam in there from Milwaukee or Indiana anyway. I guess I could have gotten to more. Actually, man, I only have 4% Giannis. That was kind of a miss by me. I do wish I had more Giannis, but it is what it is.
So for me, and by the way, unfortunately, because I had to leave Zoom, I didn't get to hear all of your answers. I don't know what our common rooting interests are. And also, I don't know. I was reading off my point guard ones, and I think I kind of dropped off. Did my point guard ones get out or not? I could do them again. It's not a big deal. But
Yeah, do them again.
So point guard for me, Darius Garland, TJ McConnell, and Ja Morant. Shooting guard for me over on FanDuel, Karis LeVert, Darius Garland, McConnell also have shooting guard eligibility, and then Buddy Hield and Dylan Brooks. Small forwards, Buddy Hield also there, Anthony Edwards and Jimmy Butler. Karis LeVert also a small forward eligibility. Power forward, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Brandon Clark, and at center, Evan Mobley, Rudy Gobert popped up for me there a decent amount as well, and Jared Allen, Brandon Clark. So there we go. It seems like we had, by the way, I really do think that now that he's confirmed in, let me refresh. What was the final ownership there on Gobert?
44% is the latest I'm seeing.
Do you think he's really going to, by the way, so latest update was 47% on DK.
Okay.
FanDuel, Gobert came in at 27%. I'd be curious to know what it actually comes in at. I doubt he comes in that high just because I know, number one, people hate him. And then number two, the news came out kind of late.
That's a good point. People really don't want to play Rudy, but he has been doing really well lately. So I don't know. People also like to watch box scores a bit, and he's only 6,400. Yeah, my guess would be if I had to take the over under on 47%, I'd take the under, but honestly, I don't have a strong lean there. But we also do have just so many great center options. I mean, Jarrett Allen right there looks great. And then we've got Precious, one of our better value options. So, and then Siakam, I actually do like Siakam a little bit more than I'm going to have to get some more Siakam into my life.
Yeah. And actually, Jordan, throw this up in the chat. Just ask people, did you roster Rudy Gobert? Yes or no? Just kind of curious where people are on this, and we'll see what the poll results show. And as we know, the polls dictate everything. If we ran a poll, should Eric Lindquist be fired or not? If you guys voted yes, I would fire him the next day, because that's how much I believe in you guys as a people. So these polls are very, very sacred to me. Answer them honestly. Rudy Gobert, did you roster him or not? Let's see. Let's see if this actually ends up being Michael Applegate saying 66%. Terry Flawboy saying yes. I know I did. Tahoti Cash saying yes. Michael Knack, no.
You guys don't read that as Terry Florida Boy. You guys always say Terry Flaw Boy. I just read that as Terry Florida Boy.
I know that's what it's short for, but like that's not what it is either. It's sure. I know what you're saying, but it's an abbreviation. I just read it kind of as is.
All right, that's fair.
My full name is Gregory. If you see Greg, you don't say Gregory, you say Greg. It's kind of the same,
true,
right?
I guess that's true. Yeah, it's
right. It's just the flaw. It's the Florida.
Good comparison there. Yeah.
People are votes are piling in. Maybe it is. We got 60-40 in favor of people saying they played Gobert today. So let's see. Maybe it just really is.
You didn't ask, like, are you assuming everybody has one, like a single entry? Because otherwise, people, maybe Peter Viles has 150 lineups with, he only has one Gobert in there.
It's true. And then we know some people played 400 lineups today.
Exactly. Some people play 400 lineups. They only have one Gobert. So
Corey Shea left us a super chat. Brandon Clark or Kyle Anderson? Pretty easily Brandon Clark for me.
Yeah.
Am I making you pick against another Minnesota player?
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yes, you are, and I don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I'm with you.
Yeah, Brandon Clark, one of my most rostered players today. You should be getting to him. Other super chats, because I'm pretty sure we had other ones in here as well that just came. Here we go. Zach F. Is it Clark versus Triple J or Triple J versus Foul Trouble? So they're in such different price points. Like, I don't think you're going to be at any point making a decision, do I want to roster Brandon Clark or Jaren Jackson Jr.? Right? Like, that's just not a decision point you're making in lineups, because if you have a lineup that is $6,800 left on DraftKings, you're probably rostering Triple J. If you're building a lineup on FanDuel that's $8,000 left, you're playing Triple J. You're not going all the way down to Brandon Clark, and vice versa too. Because if you have, the $4,500 salary left, there's no way to turn that into Triple J. But Triple J is always battling foul trouble. So to answer Zach F's question, Triple J versus foul trouble is the answer.
Definitely the latter, yeah.
Steven Eckelman, 4 Grizzlies too many. He's got Triple J, John Morant, Dylan Brooks, and Brandon Clark. I don't have an issue with that. He's asking, should he do a 1-for-1 swap for one? I don't really see a direct 1-for-1 swap with any of those guys. Is there anyone, if there was one of those players that you had to take out of a lineup, though, Neil, which Memphis player would you be least apt to play? Triple J, John Morant, Dylan Brooks, or Brandon Clark?
So I love all those guys individually. I don't think that I would play them all together. I think that I would be most inclined, like you could easily pivot from John Morant to SGA is a pretty easy pivot to do there. SGA coming in much lower owned. Yeah, that's probably the way I would go if I were just swapping one of those. But I think those are all, very good plays just in a vacuum. As I said, I'm limiting myself to 3. I think you could play 4, but in general, I'm limiting myself to 3 from any team here.
So this was not intentional. I talked before, the most I have of any team, I have a couple lineups with 4 Cleveland Cavaliers. I actually don't have any lineups with 4 Memphis Grizzlies. I didn't set any rules against it, just because I think the value on Cleveland is better than the value on Memphis, and there's other value on the slate. I didn't get to any of 4 Grizzlies. Doesn't mean I'm totally opposed to it. I just didn't get to any. The one thing I will add is because the Grizzlies are a little bit more expensive, make sure you have a Rudy Gobert and Anthony Edwards on the other side of the game, if not both of them, because then you got a chance where if the game shoots out, if it goes to overtime, you got a really highly correlated lineup. I wouldn't play 4 players from the Grizzlies with no players from Minnesota. So, yep. Steven, I think you're good there. Just make sure that you have somebody from the other side of the game in the lineup as well. That's how I'm going to answer it.
Yeah, I think that is a great answer, saying that you definitely want to play a Minnesota player if you're playing all those guys. But given the prices, I really would be disinclined to play all 4 of them. Ja at 10,000, JJJ at 6,600, Clark 49, Brooks at 46. Like nobody's cheap enough that I'd be that comfortable with it. So I would be inclined to swap somebody to somewhere else. But I agree with you. If you do want to play all 4, I would definitely want to have a Timberwolf on the bring back.
Yeah, it's funny. This was not the intention, but now I'm seeing the stray comment pop up here and there. People are really dying for this Fire Eric poll to be posted now. I shouldn't even brought it up as an option. Now people are going to want it. Maybe I should put it on Twitter where Eric can't defend himself.
That's great. Is he in chat? Is he defending himself?
If you say his name enough times, he just kind of pops up.
Yeah, of course.
But who's to say? Who's to say? He's always within a year's distance. Lemons 50 interest in SGA numbers seem apeshit with Dort off. So here's the issue that I have with SGA. I really like John Morant now for about a similar salary. And I much prefer getting to Morant over SGA. Like that's the issue for me is I have Edwards is cheaper. I like the salary savings betting on him. If I'm going similar salary, I'm going to go to Morant, and even Curry, I think, is a little bit more upside. I like SGA, but I like every other guy in this price range a little bit more.
Yeah, it is worth noting that John Morant does project for nearly 8 fantasy points more than SGA at 100 more. So Ja just looks a lot better just from a pure projection standpoint. When you factor in ownership, SGA coming in at 6.5%, Ja at 34%. That's where my interest in SGA comes in. But yeah, definitely Ja is in a vacuum. And I'd rather have Ja in more lineups. There are specific lineups like the one we were just talking about where I'd make that pivot and go to the lower owned guy where you're not playing 4 players from Memphis. But I do have a lot more of Ja than SGA currently.
So we just got the starting lineup for the Grizzlies, and I'm happy with this because it's what I thought it was going to be. So I don't have to change anything. John Morant, Dylan Brooks, Zaire Williams, Brandon Clark, Jaren Jackson Jr. So Zaire Williams, we got a couple of questions about him. I remember in Discord, it was Talltale was asking us about the viability of Zaire Williams today. And I had said that I thought that he was worth looking at as a punt, and it's because I was assuming he was going to end up starting. So Zaire Williams started a bunch of games last year, only started 1 this year. In that game, he played 28 minutes. He scored 22.5 fantasy points. I think that's where we're looking at him from here. Reasonable to project him for low 20s fantasy points. Reasonable to expect him for somewhere in the high 20s minutes. With that in mind, there are not that many super cheap players that I like getting to on DraftKings. Zaire Williams is one of them. FanDuel, where the min salary is a little bit higher, not really as much interest. DraftKings, though, Zaire Williams, 3,200. I get some exposure to him. What do you make of Zaire Williams as a starter? And then also Brandon Clark starting over Tillman again.
Yeah, so I guess I'll throw it back to you. Do you think we have Zaire Williams starting in our projections? Because we only have him projected for 18 fantasy points in 26 minutes. I have no idea if we have him projected as the starter. I usually just give it 5 minutes and wait for the projection to update. So I was going to wait to see what our projections say after the fact.
Yeah, I have him a little bit higher than that, but only marginally.
Okay.
The real case for Zaire Williams, it's not that I think he's going to go score 30 fantasy points. Like, this isn't TJ McConnell starting a min price or anything like that. It's more so that there are not other guys in that price range that I like. And I do like him, and he's got good positional eligibility. Wouldn't play him on FanDuel, like I said before. DraftKings, though, where he's so close to min price, I think he's a good play there and is worth having in the player pool.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like that.
Other super chats we have here. The next one. I assume this is a typo. Maybe did it on purpose, though. Corey Bomber. Ant-Man and Achua or Gogurt and Hero?
Ant-Man and Achua or Gogurt and Hero. I do like Gogurt. I think that is probably the former for me. I think I like Ant a little bit. I don't know. Achua is a little bit. I don't really love playing Achua. He projects fairly well, though. Maybe it is the latter. I mean, Gobert projects really well point per dollar. Achua actually projects really well point per dollar as well. You are eating up both of your center spots there, but just from a point per dollar standpoint, I got to imagine it's the dual center there, right?
So here's the issue I have with this. I want to see if there's pivots we could find for Corey, because I like Ant Edwards. I like Rudy Gogurt. Precious Achua and Tyler Hero are not really guys I'm getting to today. So let's see if we could find somebody else for him to plug in instead.
I am getting to some Precious. I will say he's 4,200. We haven't projected for over 25 fantasy points. So I like Precious a little bit better than you do. The downside is he is center only eligibility. So that's a little bit tough with all the other centers looking so great. Actually, currently I have 31% Precious, and I think I'm going to cut back on that just because, I don't know.
If I had to take a side, it's Edwards and Achua. I just want to see if there's anybody I prefer in those price ranges.
Oh, it was Edwards with Achua. So who was Rudy with?
It was Rudy Gobert with Tyler Hero.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I'm playing Tyler Hero today.
Yeah, neither am I.
I have 8% actually, but
I'm gonna side with the. I don't really see a direct pivot to Precious Achua. Tyler Hero is priced at 6,900. There's nobody priced around Hero either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Edwards and Achua. I think that's the way to go here.
I think I'm with you.
Thank you for the super chat, Corey. As for the Rudy Gobert, or as he's now known as Rudy Gogurt, we're now 50-50. Half the people saying they roster him, half people didn't. Slightly in towards the yes, 53-47. It's a dead heat here.
Interesting. But how many of them have him in just one of their 400 lineups? That's the question.
Yeah, there's not that kind of nuance to the polls here, Neil. We just throw stuff out and we see what ends up happening. What's happened to start these games, by the way? We got the Cleveland Cavaliers starting lineup. As expected, Garland, LeVert, Okoro, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. Same exact starting lineup as yesterday. The early results from the basketball game. What is my favorite? I don't remember the Gogurt flavors. Larry C just threw that in for us. Is that something that used to be part of your elementary school lunches?
I just said that I like Gogurt. I was trying to make myself seem younger than I am. I don't think that we really had Gogurt when I was a kid. So I think I've had it like a couple times in my life, but I actually have not consumed all that much Gogurt in my life.
Let me go to, there's surely a Gogurt Wikipedia page. Gogurt.
Aaron Wiggins starting, Michael Applegate says.
Do we just get I'm going to look at that in a second. The Gogurt thing is very, very important. Yeah, apparently there's just nobody knows. This is impossible information to obtain. When did Gogurt start? So we'll see. We'll put some of the world's top scientists on it. Maybe our data team will look into it, try to figure out the backstory on Gogurt. Let me make sure that there's no super chats that I didn't leave unanswered. No, the last one was from Corey Bomber, the Gogurt question, which had us a little bit derailed. But starting lineup for the Minnesota Timberwolves, for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Let's see if we got that.
We got SGA, Giddey, Andrew Wiggins, Jalen Williams. That's Jalen, and then Jalen Williams.
Yeah, here we go.
Oh yeah, Aaron Wiggins. Yeah, we got both the Jalen Williams though.
Both Jalen Williamses. Is it Jalen
Williamses?
Yeah, both the Williamses. Josh Giddey, SGA, Aaron Wiggins. Let's look at Aaron Wiggins this year. I was looking before at who I thought was going to start I got 4 out of 5 right. I didn't have the Wiggins part, though. I guessed Kenrich Williams. All right. Aaron Wiggins, how are you going to screw me tonight? Wiggins has made 7 starts this year, and he's averaged 30 minutes per game in his starts. 32 minutes his last start, 25 minutes, 27, 34. Oh, this is so he's actually played relative to other spot starters for OKC. The minutes have always been consistent for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to play some Aaron Wiggins. Check that. He's $3,100 on DraftKings. What do we got Wiggo over on FanDuel? Wiggins is $4,100 on FanDuel. I could pass on that with Aaron Wiggins. The close to min salary on DK, I prefer. Here's how I'm going to measure this. I prefer Aaron Wiggins to Zaire Williams.
Okay. Yep. That seems reasonable. And Connor just asked in chat if we are pulling the plug on Isaiah Joe. I think so. I think we're out on Isaiah Joe without.
Out on Isaiah Joe. I think the real decision point here now, and we're using that loosely because it's not like these are all in type plays, but yeah, Aaron Wiggins is somebody who is now my favorite punt play on the slate. I like him more than Zaire Williams, who was my former favorite punt play on the slate.
I like it. Yeah.
Let me see what we have. Lee, by the way, Lee was quick with it today. I already said he has projections updated. What did Lee end up doing 4 minutes here? Let me refresh the projections page and see where we landed on Aaron Wiggins. And like I said, projecting minutes for OKC is always a little bit difficult, but at the same time too, this is one guy who's kind of seen fairly consistent minutes when he's made these spot starts. So Aaron Wiggins, we've got Wiggins projected for right around 20 fantasy points, 27 minutes. I think that's totally reasonable. Also makes sense he'd be a little bit ahead of Zaire Williams. So for reference, we have Zaire Williams projected for 18.5 fantasy points, 19.5 for Aaron Wiggins. In addition to that, Wiggins is $1,000 less expensive. Is the $1,000 going to make a massive difference? No, but it's just something else that kind of goes in favor of Aaron Wiggins. Yeah, play some Wiggins tonight.
Yep.
Update my lineups and see where stuff comes in.
I'm now making my at most one group of Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga, which I had meant to make earlier.
I thought you were going to try to make some Wiggins correlation with Aaron and Andrew.
Of course, I'm going to also do, bump 6% on my Andrew Wiggins lineups if I have Aaron Wiggins.
It would have worked with the MMA slate last weekend where we had the Bonfim brothers both won by finish.
Oh, no way.
Clearly there was a relationship. Are you going to be back in the MMA streets now?
Yeah, at least somewhat. Like, I don't know if I'll be 150 maxing those, but I'm going to start playing some. Yeah. It's so much more fun with no late swap.
Yeah, the late swap was it's also the late swap was a disaster because it didn't work.
Also
so
true, yes.
It'll be fun from that standpoint. But then it also just to have to, constantly have to monitor it and try to make swaps and then just stuff wouldn't really work. I'm happy that late swap is gone from MMA. All right.
Yep.
As I late swap I love late swap in NBA though. MMA,
Me
totally
too.
different story. Aaron Wiggins. I got to 10% of Wiggins in my first run. I want to get a little bit more than that. So run this again. More than 10%. Give me some Wiggins fantasy cruncher.
Sounds like you got to turn off your randomness.
By the way, Ryan Houston, because I know Lee is watching right now. He'll appreciate this. Shout out to the projections guy. He's very quick tonight. Yeah. Lee, you probably guys know him in the DFS space as B Calicor. He's running the projections today. He's been killing it lately. He's been doing a really good job. So Lee, I know you're watching right now. You got a shout out in the YouTube chat. Michael Applegate, did they get rid of late swap? Yes, they did get rid of late swap for MMA. I'm pretty excited about that.
Me too.
All right. Looks like 20% of Aaron Wiggins is where I'm going to come in. I dig it. Because I also imagine he's going to be a little bit under-owned.
Yeah, right now I have 29% Aaron Wiggins, which I'm fine with that. Like, he's not a great point per dollar guy or anything. Like, he's very live to completely bust, but he's also very cheap and could put up 25.
Yeah, and as far as ownership projections go, because we just got an ownership update, Aaron Wiggins is projected for 17% ownership on DraftKings, on FanDuel. Oh, wow, Wiggins actually coming in at 30% on FanDuel. That's a little rich for my liking. The 17% on DraftKings relative to his price point, I like that salary.
Yeah. Man, I'm still not getting any Kuminga. I really got to give him a real projection here. I'm curious what Kuminga would be projected at if Wiggins is out. I don't do my own projections, so I just rely on our guys for that kind of stuff.
So at this point, I'm just not going to be playing Kuminga.
That's reasonable also.
I just hope Wiggins plays, because a couple of things. Number one, if Wiggins plays, Kuminga's dead. Two, Wiggins could sit. They just might not start Kuminga. They could start somebody else, which in that case also, Kuminga probably dead. The other thing that could happen, Kuminga's bad. He could start and just be shit. That's it. So to me, there's a lot of hurdles here to get to. We need Wiggins to be out. We need Kuminga to start, and we need Kuminga to play well. And I don't, it's just a lot to have to come together. That and the game starts 2 hours after any of the other ones.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a pass for me.
It's risky for sure. It's only a large field GPP play at all, I think.
I agree. Large field GPPs, if you want to take a chance, you could. I've just opted to not do it.
Yeah.
Ace of spade, Gobert or Allen for DK tiers. I prefer our guy, Rudy Gobert.
I'll go with Gobert also. Tiers. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Let me so who actually projects better? We've got Gobert at 40.76, Jared Allen. Yeah, so Gobert just projects better. Yeah, go there.
Rudy Gobert it is. And how did you get your lineups updated for all the news you want to? Or
I'm kind of just going bit by bit, but I've got a lineup set in. Still thinking about do I want more of this guy, less of this guy? I don't know, but I'm good. What's
your biggest decision point right now in terms of somebody you want to get more or less of?
Honestly, it's Kuminga as we're talking about. Because I'm just seeing the ownership being, we've got him at 0.4% projected ownership at 4,000. Kuminga, he could be bad, but Kuminga is also live to put up a 30 fantasy point game. There are some other, we do have Clark at power forward now too. So it's not really that weak of a position. Currently I am getting to north of 10% Kuminga. I'm at 11.8%, which certainly those lineups are dead if he's out. I'm not completely dead, but very likely to be dead. But I am playing a good number of players from those games also. So I imagine, I'm not looking at them that closely, but I imagine a lot of them I will have somebody else in there as well, and I can make different pivots. But that's one of my bigger decision points.
Some questions in Discord will answer these, and that'll end the weekend for us. And then I'll be off tomorrow. Won't be here. I'll be at the comedy show, hanging out with the fam. My dad's birthday. Big Dream $. I have 36% of my lineups with Mobley and Allen in the same lineup. Is that too much? No, I think that's reasonable. If you just have those two Cavs guys together, I'm cool with it. Any issue with Allen and Mobley, two Cavs in the third of his lineups?
No, they're good.
We're both cool with that. Sam Cassell Dance, favorite play on DK for $7,100 or under. Let's see. So I assume we're looking for a utility play here. That is Mobley for me. If you already have Mobley in your lineup, then it is Rudy Gobert. And if you already have Gobert, then Jaren Jackson Jr. So I'll do it in tiers here just because I know there's only a couple minutes left, and these are some popular players you might already have. But Evan Mobley, option 1. If you already got him, Rudy Gobert, option 2. If you got both those guys, Triple J, option 3. Make sense to you?
It does. I will say Rudy Gobert actually does project better than Mobley in our projections, just by a fantasy point. So he is cheaper, but he does project a little bit better. So I don't know that you necessarily go to Mobley first, but those are I love all of those guys. And I'm playing a ton of Jaren Jackson Jr., playing a lot of Mobley, playing a lot of Gobert. Yeah, you can't go wrong.
Okay. That is going to do it for us today, guys. If you have not done it yet, do us a big favor. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you guys very much for sticking around with us to the end. Have a great weekend. I'll see you guys back here on Monday.